I model upon you, Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. For the opening. Barakafa Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathalanawa, Hashabbath, Ba'shalom, Fawada, Aman. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the Sabbath in peace. Thank you, so be it. The Ha'ayim Ma'ad Asherayim Akkad, Psalms 121. Anya, Arayim, Ayanyam Ya, Oh, Hahayim, Bayan, Yabawa, Isaiah, Yabawa, Mayahawa, Shaisha, Shemayim, Wa'arataza, La'a, Yanathan, Lamawat, Regalia, Yala'a, Yanawam, Shashamarka, Hana, Ma'a, Yanawam, Wala'a, Yayashun, Shashuamar, Yasharala, Yahweh, Shamaya, Yahweh, Tazalia, Aya, Ya, Yam Yin Ya, Yabamam, Hashemash, La'a, Hakaya, Wayarat, La'a, Balayala, Yahweh, Yashamaya, Mako, Ra, Yashmar, Napasha, Yahweh, Yashmar, Hawalakia, Waboa'aya, Ma'aitha, Wa'ai, Iwalam, Basham, Yahweh Shai, Tawada, Aman.
Psalms 121, a song of degrees. I will lift up mine eyes into the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper, the Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth, and even forevermore. Amen.
Amen. Shema Yasharallah, Hail Israel. Shema Yasharallah, Yahweh, Allah Hayanawa, Yahweh, Shema Yasharallah, Yahweh, Allah Hayanawa, Yahweh, Shema Yasharallah, Yahweh, Allah Hayanawa, Yahweh.
Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Amen.
Tapala Yahweh, the Lord's Prayer. Abiyanawa, Shabbat Shemayim, Kodash, Chaya, Shamka, Yahweh, Malak with Ka, Faba'a, Ratazawanka, Haya, Aisha, Ba'arataza, Ka, Bashemayim, Nathalanawa, Lakham, Yowum, Sa, Wasalakanawa, Kababwathanawa, Kasalaknawa, Kabawathanawa, Wala'a, Habiyanawa, O, Nasaiwan, Abo, Hawashinawa, Morai, Kaya, Laka, Hamalakwa, Waha'ala, Wathapara, La'aiwalam, Aman.
Matthew 6:9. After this manner, therefore, pray ye, our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Ha'aishirah Matazawaf, the Ten Commandments. La'a, Yahaya, Laka, Alahayim, Akaryim, Alpanya, La'a, Thaisha, Laka, Haso, Wala'a, Thaibadum, La'a, Talakwaka, Shamwa, Yahweh, Alahayaka, Lashua, Zakar, Ah, Hayawum, Hashabath, La Kodashra, Kabad, Abiaka, Wa Amaka, La'a, Daratazak, La'a, Thana'a, La'a, Thakana, La'a, Thaina, Shukur, La'a, Thakama, Ko, Ashura, Lara'ayaka, Aman.
Exodus 20:3. Thou shalt know that thou art before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and show mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. For the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh this name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in the midst, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, or anything that is thy neighbor's. Amen.
Aman, Yeshabah, be seated. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathalanawa, Par Yahagapin, Thawada Amun, La Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ath Yasha Allah. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. And my God, upon you, are Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. The opening prayers. Barakatha Yahweh, Hagadol, Rakawam, Abiyah, Waraba'ah, Aliyawan, Malak, Shal, Shemayim, Waratazah, Wakal, Devarim, Kayayam, Wagam, Hamashiach, Mayahawa, Adawanawa, Ahabnawa, Papalah, Yawaitza, Yahweh Shai, Zakarnawa, Yahweh, Barataza 1, Ainka, Yasha'Allah, Aizarnawa, Bana, Wasap, Yasha'Allah, O, Nanawa, Yum Yun, Aitha, Kayawumyum, Makodam, Babakosha, Shalat, Maika'Allah, Wahatazwadat, Alahayim, La, Maganawa, Rapanawa, Washamar, Alna, Baikor, Shalat, Haroka, Shal, Yahawashai, Lanawa, Lalamanawa, Rabium, Hakama, Tabawada, Wada'ai, Shal, Debarka. Bahasham, Yahushai, Thawada, Thum Yad, Bible Aman. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, the great, merciful, mighty, terrible, most high power, King of heaven and earth and all things living. And also the anointed from Yahweh, our Lord, our friend, the wonderful counselor, Yahweh Shai. Remember us, Yahweh, favorably, your people Israel. Help us build and gather Israel. Most high, we beg you, right now like the days of old. Please send Michael and the righteous powers to protect us, heal us, and watch over us. Mainly send the spirit of Yahweh Shai to us, to teach us much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of thy word. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you always and forever, so be it. Repeat the Hebrew only. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives us the law. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Atolanawa, Athoarah. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives us light to see. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Atolanawa, Owar, Lara'awah. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives us the ram's horn to call the people. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Atolanawa, Koran, Ha'yah, Lakorah, Ha'ain. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives us the olive oil to anoint Israel. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Atolanawa, Hasheman, Sayath, Lamashak, Yasha Allah. Shabbat, be seated. Right. Shah Shabbat, happy Sabbath, brothers and sisters. Shalom, shalom, peace and blessings to all brothers and sisters throughout the nation of Israel. Those who are logged in on the teleconference currently, shalom, shalom. Those listening on the, those watching on the live stream, shalom. Those listening on the teleconference, shalom. And those who will be joining a little bit later on, peace and blessings, happy Sabbath to all. My name is Kahan Samak. This is Hayashir Ala Kanas. Today is the 7th day, the Shabbat of the Most High, where we come to worship before the Lord, set aside all of our personal pleasures and endeavors to come and do the Most High's will, which is not only to just to understand his word, but to also do good things on this day as well. So again, happy Sabbath to those who are all joining, and to those who will be joining. Shalom, Akwath Aliyah Aina, Shalom, Ak Tuab Lab, and Akwath Emma Shivas, Shalom, Akwath Zion, Shalom, Akwath Awoya, Shalom, Sister Marie Phila Jane. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Marie Phila Jane. Shalom, sister, to you. And say again. That's it. Yeah, I think I got it. Yeah. Shalom. Shalom. All right. So again, this is the Sabbath day where we come to the Most High to become before the Most High to teach the Most High's laws, statutes, understanding, history, prophecy, fruits of the Spirit, and all things that you find contained in the 80 books known as the Bible. Right. When we talk about the 80 books, we have the King James Version, 66 books. And then we also have the Apocrypha King James Version as well, 14 books collectively. That makes the 80 books, right? We go back to the 1611 translation because that closely aligns to the Hebrew and the Greek from whence they were translated, right? And then bits and pieces even here that you'll see things of the Chaldean during the times of the Babylonian captivities. Certain writings and scribes and things are also annotated. So we go into the Bible to now find the Most High's chosen people, find all nations in the earth, so that we can get clarity
on what the Most High's vision is pertaining this whole world, right? And find out, we go through the history leading up to the Most High choosing a nation, that nation being starting with our forefather Jacob, by way of his patriarchs, Isaac and Abraham, even going back to Noah and Adam, right? The Most High promised that he would raise up a seed through that lineage that would be his seed, his chosen seed, that would now be the recipient of his glory, his laws, his statutes, his commandments. And we find out that who we are in the last days, or who this people is, based on the blessings and the curses that came from the Most High with the agreement with this nation. And we understand that this nation, our nation, did transgress the Most High's commandments, did break the agreement, and the Most High's judgment or curses befell this nation. And we now went and did the comparison, as all go out and compare those things that we read throughout the scriptures. What nation of people did that happen to, right? What nation of people went through slavery, bondage, Egypt, by way of cargo slave ships or ships in general? What nation of people had another people whose image or insignia was the eagle that came and enslaved them, stole their land and their customs and their culture and called it their own? And then you have a lot of other different types of curses and characteristics that, you know, give us our identity of who we are, as far as for the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. So those whose ancestors on their father's side, as we always quote in the book of Exodus, 20th chapter, I believe it's the 4th verse, going back to your 3rd and 4th generation. Those on your father's side who fit the history pertaining to those who came over on cargo slave ships through the transatlantic slave trade, or throughout the diaspora, so-called Negroes, West Indians, Haitians. That history aligns with what we read throughout the Old Testament, New Testament, as well as the hidden books known as the Apocrypha, right? Those descriptions fit you as being a portion of the southern kingdom, known as the kingdom of Judah, when you read it throughout the Bible. During the times of Solomon, the nation was split into 2 different kingdoms. And one was the southern kingdom, ruled by Rehoboam, and then those who were the part of the northern kingdom, which had the majority of the tribes, was ruled by Jeroboam, an Ephraimite. And those characteristics, those curses, fit who we call now, today, in these last days, the native indigenous American Indians, Seminole Indians here throughout North America. Those known as the Hispanics, right, throughout Central and South America, so-called Mexicans, Peruvian, Brazilians, Chileans, Colombians, Argentinians, so forth and so on, right? Arawak Indians, Taino Indians, right? Those were the indigenous people spread throughout the Americas prior to the conquistadors, Dutch, Spaniards, Portuguese, so forth and so on, coming over to the land and then enslaving and colonizing and taking it, and then bringing the southern kingdom to come over as well to partake in the judgment that the Most High had already prescribed in Deuteronomy, the 20th chapter, for breaking the commandments. So when we say that we are this people, it's not that we are going out and just starting a claim to discredit everyone else. We first are identifying ourselves. It shouldn't be a problem to go and have what they like to call knowledge of self, right? Everybody say, oh, I got knowledge of self. Well, what we are doing is getting the true biblical knowledge of self, of who we came, right? So we had to search through our biblical forefathers. It tells you in Job 8 and 8, right? To do a diligent search, you have to go through your ancestral lineage of those who recorded this information for us in these last days. You had certain prophets like the prophet Ezra. When you read it in the 2nd Esdras, he was concerned that throughout the times of the regenerations, or what we call today the reincarnation, when we come up in the last days, that we wouldn't have these records, so that we would be able to identify ourselves, to understand how we got into the situation or the circumstances that we are in today. So he petitioned to the Most High, because the records were destroyed at his time, that the Most High will put the spirit in him, raise up righteous men, that they can go and now have the records preserved, so that we would have them in the last days so that we can read now and gain that understanding, right? And then you have the different types of laws that governs us once we come back to having our identity, right? Ceremonial laws, different, as they call them in the world, holidays. We call them holy days, high holy days, Passover. We're about to come upon the Feast of the First Fruits, or the Pentecost. You got the Feast of Tabernacles, Day of Atonement, Feast of Dedication, so forth and so on. These are things that we, as a part of our ancestral culture, should be celebrating in these last days. Moral and civil laws. We're going to touch on some of these today in the Sabbath service lesson as we go through the book of Ecclesiasticus, or also known as Sirach, chapters 3 and 4. Right? It's going to get into certain aspects pertaining to moral laws, right? How we're supposed to live amongst these, what is our duty to each other? How do we view and how do we help one another? How do we reverence and respect one another? Right? Most High is going to give us some of that in today's lesson, but the Bible is filled with a lot of lessons to govern us, right? And then you have sacrificial laws, which are done away with because Christ became the ultimate sacrifice, right? So that portion is done away with. And then last but not least, the dietary law, as far as for foods that we consume, and then the foods that are still being served today is an abomination by the Most High, which should be an abomination to us. So again, this is our objective for going through the scriptures. And then we also watch out for the prophecies pertaining to the ending of this kingdom, the redemption of our nation, right? The Most High's will being brought on earth. The Most High has given different righteous men and women tokens or prophecies that have been written in the scriptures that we can go read up on, understand with wisdom, and then watch for them to take place in these last days, right? So as we're executing and trying to master keeping the Most High's law, we're also watching and observing for the signs of the times. Right? So this is a portion of the completeness of this book. There's a lot of different dark sayings and secrets and things that's plain, and some that are not. And as much as you spend time, you labor in the scriptures, your wisdom increases. So this is one of those things where it's a beautiful thing that we have the Sabbath day, that you have different brothers and camps that now come out and they teach different lessons, right? HYK is one branch. You have other camps, HOY, House of David, Watchmen for Israel, IUIC, ISUPK. There's a lot of different branches that's out there that's doing the work, right? As far as we're trying to raise up the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel that are also like-minded to do certain things. Now, there are some differences that we may have based on scripture or conduct. But as Paul articulated in his letters, long as the gospel is preached, right, he was in favor. And Yahushua and the angels will come and deal with all the other things. Those who are not sincere, the Most High and the angels will weed those things out. But we just try to go out and do the work. All right. So Shalom, Elder Zaquan, Shalom, Aqua, Aqua, for joining as well. So we're going to jump in to the Apocrypha. If you do not have an Apocrypha or a 1611 King James Version Bible, you can always Google it. There's many different King James Bibles, online apps that have, the books of the Apocrypha in it, that you can read along if it's not a part of your repertoire, and gain the understanding. So as I said, today's lesson, let me change this here. It's a lot. I left this up. Shouldn't have been there. All right. Yes, today's lesson is going to be in Sirach chapters 3 and 4. Sirach chapters 3 and 4. All right. So let's jump into Ecclesiasticus chapters 3, verse 1. It says, "Hear me, your father, O children, and do thereafter, that ye may be safe. Remembering that when we first read the book of Sirach, you had two individuals, one, the man Sirach, Jesus, and his grandson of the same name. So when it's saying, hear me, your father, right, you have certain individuals who are looked at as a father figure to the nation, right? Paul was like that. Eleazar, when you read it in the book of the Maccabees, he was deemed to be a father figure. So a father figure kind of gives advice and guidance and helps raise up a child or a people. So in this case, this is now him speaking to even us today, right? Them back then, as well as us today, and certain aspects and how we're supposed to conduct or act amongst each other. So I'm gonna read it again. It says, hear me, your father, O children, and do thereafter, that ye may be safe, right? So when you understand the keeping of the Most High's commandments is what brings you some form of comfort, that if you do the Lord's will, he'll protect you, right? He'll set up angels around you, just like how you read in the book of Job, the first and second chapters, when the Most High labeled Job to be a righteous person. It's like it was almost like he was perfect because he was a man in the midst of sin that was keeping the commandments. And what happened? The Most High put a hedge around Job, meaning there was not many angels that the Most High allowed to go and do anything to Job, right? So that lets you know that the Most High, when you read those chapters, is in control of all things, even how the angels deal with you, right? Or even carnal things that may happen might affect you or deal with you, whereas it might happen to somebody else who's not keeping the commandments. So when you do the Most High's will, you can be kept safe, right? There's a lot of things that might be happening that you may not even realize is happening, but the Most High is protecting you, and you don't know that certain things has now just went over you and went to somebody else. So when you do the Lord's will, when you're following the moral code, the civil code, the dietary laws, the ceremonial laws, the Most High is keeping you safe. All right, so I'm going to read that again. Hear me, your father, O children, and do thereafter, that ye may be safe. For the Lord hath given the father honor over the children, and have confirmed the authority of the mother over the sons. Whoso honoreth his father maketh an atonement for his sins, and he that honoreth his mother is as one that layeth up treasures. Right? So what is Sirach getting into? Is getting into one of the base 10 commandments that we read about in the law, right? Exodus, the 20th chapter. We read this during the opening of the Sabbath service, right? Exodus 20 and 12. So Exodus 20 and 12. It reads, it says, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy power giveth thee. So he's now quoting or referencing the same things that was a part of the initial law that the Most High gave to Moses on Mount Sinai to distribute to the children of Israel. And as time went on, these laws had to always be reintroduced to us. So here on one hand, we're talking about being kept safe. Here in the actual law, it says that you will be allowed to have long life, right? Your days will be lengthened if you honor and reverence and respect your father and your mother, right? So it gets into now that relationship that now should be enduring. From the time that you're a kid to the time that you're an adult and you grow up, there's a certain level of reverence and respect that you're supposed to have for your mother and your father, right? The mother has the authority over the sons. You can't get to a certain point and say, oh, I'm bigger than my britches, I don't have to reverence or respect my mother, right? Sometimes it gets to a point where as you get into your adulthood, you may think that now you have power or authority over them, right? But they're still your parents, right? And as we read on down, it's going to give different aspects and how we're supposed to maneuver and operate into that. But the Most High began the base 10 Because these is like the foundation that we are supposed to operate. There's many laws throughout the Bible, but these first 10, when you look at it, it really provides a good fabric or cloth and how our thinking and how our logic, wisdom goes about, right? From fornication, adultery, to stealing and theft, to covetousness, to idolatry, right? To reverence and respect. There's different aspects to the first 10. Now we're touching on your mother and your father. So that's Exodus chapter 20 and 12. Go to Deuteronomy chapter 5. Deuteronomy chapter 5. And verse 16. Deuteronomy 5:16 says, honor thy father and thy mother as the Lord thy power hath commanded thee, that thy days may be prolonged, and that it may go well with thee in the land which the Lord thy power giveth thee. Right? So that's the same thing. That's like the combination, that it may go well with you, that you may be kept safe because of how you deal with your parents. Because the parents, this is dealing with those who are in this truth, those who are righteous. We're not talking about, someone who's into all different kind of religions, non-religions, whatever. They're into their own thing. They feel that they are the most high. Women are the God now. Like, you have a lot of different perspectives out there as it pertains to righteousness, right? Or what you should follow as in a belief structure. What we're reading here in the law, we wasn't dealing with what the other nation was talking about. We wasn't dealing with what man could strive. We was following what the Most High had given to Moses to give to the men and the women, and that was supposed to be also distributed to the children's children and so forth and so on. Like, I think it's Psalm 78, I think verse 5 on down, right? The Most High instituted the law in Jacob, and that we're supposed to teach it to the children and then the children's children, right? So the law was the main focus here. So when your parents taught you dietary laws, your parents taught you about theft and stealing and about, fruits of the spirit, you now are supposed to give a duty or an honor unto them, right? So that now that would carry over. But now what happens if somebody's not in there, in this truth? Go to the book of Ephesians chapter 6. Ephesians chapter 6. And verse 1. It says, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor thy father and thy mother, which is the first commandment with promise, right? Because when you read it, the promise was that thy days would be prolonged. You'd have length of days if you did that. So that's the first commandment when you read it in the 10 that came with a promise, right? Like a reward. If you kept that one, as every day you did this, you have a longer period in your life when you're in the earth, right? So that's why it says, which is the first commandment with promise. Verse 3, that it may be well with thee, and that thou mayest live long on the earth, right? So if you have parents, especially those who are in this truth, you're supposed to give them their due honor and respect. We'll get a little bit into that, what that means. Verse 4, it says, and ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, right? So now as it pertains to the parents have a duty to rear them up in the Lord, right? So now when you look at provoking them to wrath, is allowing them to do other things, or letting them now have the authority over you to dictate what certain things is going to happen in their life, right? That's not of the Most High. That's going to lead them to wrath, because a child or a person that's not well nurtured in the Most High is going to be a wild individual out there in the world. We're not talking that you got to be wild as you running around there shooting and doing this, that, and the third, but you can be a silent wild, right? You could be a quiet person that's out there that's not crazy, but the things that you're doing, it speaks volumes of how crazy or how wild and outlandish your movements are. So the parents now have to give that guidance and say, nah, that's not good. You have to do this. Let me give you some explanation behind why this is not good, right? By being silent and being quiet, it's going to cause them to go and do their own thing, right? But the key here is that it has to be under with the nurture and the admonition of the Lord. So if the person is not teaching under the admonition of the Most High, let's just say we in this truth, and you have parents that might still be living, and you're reading this, it says, honor thy father and thy mother. Well, my mother wants me to go do this on the Sabbath day, right? But the scripture said, honor my parents. So, I mean, what do I break the commandment? It specifies it right here. It has to be within the nurture and admonition of the Lord. If it deviates from the Most High, then you can't do it, right? Because the Most High has the authority over us, right? Even though they have the authority over the children, right? Over you, there's another authority that supersedes their call or their judgment. So if it's certain things that goes against the Most High's will, they can't do it. But if it's other things where it might be certain, times where they may need your help, right? They may be falling on low times. They may need a little bit of money and so forth and so on. And it's sincere. It's not something that they're using the money to go do something wicked with. Then it's your obligation to try to help them out as best you can, right? To go spend time with them, to go do certain things, because that is also building and fostering a good family structure at the home. And then it carries on out of the home to the rest of the nation, right? I remember there's a conversation that we used to always have. You can tell, or especially when it pertains to when you get into relationships and things of that nature, there was always a words of wisdom to say, listen, how you see that man deal with his mother is something indicative of how he's going to also probably have a relationship with you. How you see that son deal with his mother, that daughter deal with her father, all of those is characteristics and things that's bred in the home, right? So you want to make sure that if you're looking at someone, just judge their actions, right? You see how they come around. You may not even have like me and my parents, they're not in tune with the scriptures. They're not following, thus saith the Most High on this or that and the third. However, I still give them honor and respect, right? I don't speak out and do certain things and curse them and I don't do those things. They still look at me as, a decent, honorable son. What's tomorrow? Is it tomorrow Father's Day? I think tomorrow is so-called Father's Day. Or either tomorrow or next weekend, right? So-called Father's Day. They're not going to get he's not going to get a call from me on that to say, oh, the scripture say, honor your father. That's not the honor that it's talking about, that I call you and say, hey, happy Father's Day, and send you a tie or a belt or, whatever the case may be. No, the honor comes from what you have set down as far as for teaching me and nurturing me in the admonition of the Lord. But still, as a child, you have a responsibility to still respect and reverence them to a certain extent, because they are your parents. And the scripture is going to get into that too as we read on, right? So that's the key. Honor comes with the Most High, right? Because there's a lot of our family members and friends and this, that, and the third who are held in dishonor because they don't keep the law. But does that mean that we just discredit them totally? No, we can't, right? You still have to go and do certain things for your mother and your father, as we're going to also read on. Go to Ecclesiasticus chapter 7. Ecclesiasticus chapter 7 and 27. So Ecclesiasticus 7 and 27, it says, honor thy father with thy whole heart, and forget not the sorrows of thy mother, right? So it says, honor your father with your whole heart, meaning your mind, meaning giving him the respect due, and forget not the sorrows of thy mother. Verse 28, remember that thou wast begotten of them, And how canst thou recompense them the things that they have done for thee? Right now, when we're talking about recompense, the thing that they have done for thee, we're speaking in righteousness. We're not speaking about when the parents was on drugs and they left you in the house alone, and you could have had bad things happen to you. There was never. We're not talking about the trauma that you received or the absence of a parent that you had and the trauma from that. This is again dealing with those who attempted to rear you up. Right? I can't recompense, the feeding, the changing my diapers, taking me here, staying up with when I was sick, taking me here in order to get certain. There's a lot of things that there's a responsibility put upon parents in raising up the child, as well as teaching them and nurturing them in this truth. So, the care of when you leave to go outside your doors, right? When you go outside your door, there's a worry that comes. Oh man, I hope my child make it there, make it back, right? That nothing befalls them when they leave, right? You kind of have those thoughts that you want to make sure that the safety of your children or your child is there, right? Or you'll have to do what Job did when you read Job, the first chapter, right? He had constant thoughts about his children, and he sent up sacrifices and prayers because he thought that they may have done something that the Most High would have judged them on, right? Taking them out of the way. So there's a constant worry and sorrow that comes with parenting with the children. So as a children, you have to give them their just due and respect for all that they've done for you as you've grown up, right? It's just good, as they say, karma, like Galatians 6 and 7, right? You're reaping these things so that when the time comes, when you now in that position, that spirit and that energy carries over. You do the same thing for your children, and they give you the same type of respect, right? So that's Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verses 27 to 28. All right, let's go back.
Oh, it's a celeb example, but they turned it into a meme. But it was actually, part of moment. The Kevin Durant giving a speech, talking about his mom, and she was there for him, and be a real MVP. That kind of became a thing.
Right. Yeah, you have a lot of athletes, persons who, celebrities that come from the trenches within our nation, that once they get on and they get money, they go and they buy them houses and they do certain things because she sacrificed. I think I just saw one yesterday or day before. There was a high school kid. There was a mother who did 30 years as a housekeeper, saved up a good portion of her money to allow her son to go be a pilot. And they showed the clip where she's boarding the plane going somewhere, and she doesn't know that it's her son that's flying the plane. And like as soon as you board the plane, they had the thing covered up, but they filmed it and then took the curtain down, and then it's him standing there with his pilot, outfit on, and then of course she's crying and everything else, right? Because she made that sacrifice for him to give him his, quote unquote dreams of aspirations of becoming something in the world. So you'll see that happen a lot on a carnal level, where children will go and pay it back to their parents for the sacrifice that they've done, right? But that's a part of it, on a carnal level of you making sure that your children have food, shelter, clothing, that certain things that they want to, professions that they want to become in society, that they have the resources, or if they don't have the resources and the money, then you say, okay, well, I'm going to sacrifice for that, right? It's always the thought that you want your children to outdo you, right? Your children to be better than you. So, you've got certain things like, all right, I'm going to sacrifice. I'm going to do this for my kids to have more than what I had, to have a better circumstance, right? We know the Most High controls all, but that's usually the thought process, right? So you'll see sometimes they'll come back and they'll repay that in that manner too. But let's go back. The Ecclesiasticus chapter 3 and verse 5 now. It says, whoso honoreth his father shall have joy of his own children. And when he maketh his prayer, he shall be heard, right? So you have the respect, reverence for your own parents in the Most High, then when you have children, as time goes on, it'll come back because you've sown that goodness. You've sown those attributes in yourself. And now you understand what it means to now have that for your parents. And now as you grow up, you're going to try to instill those in your children. And then you'll have the Most High, you know, bring good energy down upon your children that they will respect you. Does that happen all the time? No, because there's cases where you read in the scriptures where you had some righteous men, their children was off. Right? Now, whether or not, I think it's, you know, we definitely know Samuel's sons, you know, whether he instilled it and they went off when they got older. I forget the other priest in the book of Judges. Was it Elkanah? He was being judged by the Most High for his lack of doing certain things with his children, right? So there's cases where you see examples where you have righteous men whose children go off, but in the most cases, when you do this, it should carry over where your children also will have good fortune in respecting and reverencing you. Verse 6, it says, he that honoreth his father shall have a long life, and he that is obedient unto the Lord shall be a comfort unto his mother. Right? Kind of goes into what I mentioned earlier. Even in not being in the truth, speaking about my parents, I'm still looked at as a comfort to them because I still act accordingly. Right? I don't wow out on them. Right? And that same method of how we deal with our own mother. I remember I used to see people, we go out to camp, and how people be railing and screaming on people, death, this, that, and the third. And the brother back then said, well, if that was your mother standing in front of the camp, would you want somebody to speak to your mother in that manner? It's like, nah, I wouldn't want that. So even in that regard, you will speak comfortably, like it tells you in the Old Testament to Jerusalem. You speak comfortably and try to offer advice, try to go back and forth, but it's still it's a conversation, right? And how you deal with them. But still, you act accordingly. You do not do anything to go against the ministry, for somebody to blame the ministry and say, see how he act, see what he said, see how he's treating his mother. Look at that, right? No, you can't do that, because that's not becoming of the Most High and how he wants to deal, right? It's not becoming of Yahushua, right? Yahushua wouldn't act in that manner. So we should. So it says here again, verse 6, he that honoreth his father shall have a long life. Again, that's a part of the promise that we just read in Ephesians. And he that is obedient unto the Lord shall be a comfort to his mother. So the Most High always is in the mix of that, like a three-chord strand, right? The Most High has to be in the midst of how you deal with not only your parents, but either siblings, friends, or anybody else within Israel. Verse 7, he that feareth Yahweh will honor his father and will do service unto his parents as to his masters, right? So the way in which there's a relationship that Yahushua had with the nation, that he was our good master, right? And we was the servants. But even as a good master, he did service to us, and we acknowledged, and we looked at that, and we was like, wow, look how he's dealing with us, right? So in the same time, we always wanted to go and curtsy to Yahushua. We wanted to do everything for Yahushua while he was ministering and doing things for us. So that now also takes a turn. At a certain point in time, you know, everything has a full circle. Parents reared you up, took care of you, fed you, burped you, did all these different things. And it might happen that in time, you're going to have to do that for your parents, right? They're going to get older, right? They understand it's going to wane, and you're going to have to now also come behind and take care of them, right? It's only right, that we do that. So that's why there's a duality to it. The same way in how you deal with them, reverence them, and take care of them is going to come back, and you got to now take care of them the same way. When you now have children, guess what? You're going to want the same thing. You're going to want your children to reverence and respect you the same manner. And then when it gets to a point where you're old, decrepit, can't walk, right? Your memory is gone, your wits is not there, you're going to want them to have the same patience right, and care that they did with you when you was adolescents growing up, and they had to, chasten you, they had to advise you, they had to teach you, they had to show you, all these different things, clean you up. That now comes back where you're going to have to do like-minded things, right? It says in verse 8, honor thy father and mother both in word and deed, that a blessing may come upon thee from them, right? So it says, honor them in word and deed, not just on one so-called fake day, right? Not just on one day you send a flower or kind words, but 364 days out of the year or 350 days out of the year, you really don't have no conversation, no care. You don't even have a thought of them, but it looks good. It's a good show. It's a nice Instagram post, right? People see the post like, wow, that's her mom. Oh, that's his dad. Wow, man, I know it looks good. But it tells you in James 1:22, be ye doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves. Because all that is just a show for those who are ignorant. They may not know. They're going to formulate their own thought. But the Most High knows how you act. The Most High knows what you do. So if that's not sincere, if you're not really showing reverence and honor to your parents in the Lord, right, then you're deceiving yourself, because you will not receive that promise of having long days on the land. You will not have that safety or the assurance of safety from the Most High, because you are following it or sincerely trying to follow it. Sure, you might mess up here and there. I could have done that better. I could have probably gone down and did this for them, but I'll make it up. I'll try to make it up. Right? I try to do certain other things. So even in that, the same way we have the relationship with the Most High, and where we are obligated to do certain things for the Father, that's Heavenly Father, and we may not get to it, but you have thoughts. You bethink yourself, right? You go examine yourself. You say, dang, I could have done that. I should have done that. What? Salakia Most High, forgive me. I'll make it up. I'll do something over there. I'll try to do a little bit double on that end. It's the same thing on a lower level for your carnal parents that's on earth, right? Because it's in the Lord. They're like our masters. So all of this is the foundational aspect of what now puts a fabric in you, right? When you don't have a relationship, when people see that, they be like, Dad, what's your relationship with your dad? Oh, I don't really have a relationship with dad. Right then and there, there's some trauma there, right? There's some trauma that happened, either on your side or his side, cause a breach, right? And now without having that there, it's now you got to try to overcome and deal with certain things, whether there's regrets or there's, just same thing with the mother, right? There's thoughts spiritually innate, that you should be doing these things. That's why the Most High has to put certain things in the law. The Most High has to tell us, remember this, and it has to be repetitive. Because the way the world works, you so consumed with so many different things, it's easy to forget the most vital, important things. So it has to be repetitive. It has to kind of repeat itself throughout Exodus, Deuteronomy, here in Ecclesiastes, there in Ephesians, there in Colossians. It has to repeat itself over and over to instill it in you how you should act and how operate, right? And these are all blessings. Jobs is great, right? But the job, because you ain't doing this right, the Most High can have that taken away. Your health, you're not going about certain things. The Most High can now jam you up where your days don't be lengthened and it's shortened because you're not doing the righteous acts to the best of your ability, right? So read this again, verse 8. Honor thy father and mother both in word and deed, that a blessing may come upon thee from them. For the blessing of the father established the houses of children, but the curse of the mother rooteth out foundations, right? So again, this curse does not mean like how people send up hexes. It's more so that the mother is upset with how you behaving, and she speak words about you. That boy, he gonna be the death of me. He always into something. He always doing this, right? That's the spirit, the word that comes out. You see that carnally. You don't want that to be that case. You don't want to give them or anybody any space for them to say that you're doing something evil or wicked, right? Especially anything that outside of this truth. So the blessings that you want will come good words and things from your parents. That's what happened in the book of Genesis. Go to Genesis, right? Because you want to get blessings from the parents. The parents at times gave blessings. Those who were in the spirit, right? Those who are in the spirit. Go to Genesis 28. And verse 1. Genesis 28:1, it says, and Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and charged him and said unto him, thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan, right? So here's a father with his son. He received a blessing from his father. And then his father gave him a charge, an order, right? So the blessings came first, and he says, and oh, by the way, don't go and do that, right? Don't go and deal with those women over there, right? So we see that there is a responsibility of the parents, specifically the fathers, to make sure blessings happen to the children, especially the children that are doing or striving for righteousness. You're not going to go out there and bless the child that's wilding out in the streets. You'll pray for them, but you're not blessing them with good fortune, especially because of their actions. It says, arise, go down to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, thy mother's father, and take thee a wife from thence of the daughters of Laban, thy mother's brother. And the power Almighty bless thee and make thee fruitful and multiply thee, that thou mayest be a multitude of people, right? So now this is the blessings that's coming prior to the charge, right? Go to your cousins and take a wife from them. By following this, you'll receive these blessings. Verse 4. And give thee the blessing of Abraham to thee, and to the seed, to thy seed with thee, that thou mayest inherit the land wherein thou art a stranger, which power gave unto Abraham. So that's the blessing that now Isaac is putting on Jacob, right? Taking even the blessing that came from his father and passing it down to him. He ain't passing it to Esau. He ain't passing it to this one. He's going to get a different type of a blessing, right? Jump down to verse 14. It says, and thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south, and in thee and in thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed, right? So that was the blessing that came upon Jacob from his father Isaac, right? That was that eternal blessing, right? Esau received the blessing, but it was according to his spirit, right? It was according to his spirit. He was blessed with the sword, right? But here, this was that eternal blessing. So now, even in that, right, there's a certain duty that now befalls the parents, especially when you have sons, to carry on certain aspects of tradition and how we deal with them so that they have good fortune, right? But now it said back when we was reading in Ecclesiasticus, as far as for the curse of the mother rooteth out generations. Go to Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 30. Proverbs chapter 30 and verse 11. It said, there is a generation that curseth their father and doth not bless their mother. Verse 12, there's a generation that are pure in their own eyes and yet is not washed from their filthiness, right? So when a child doesn't adhere to the wisdom, the knowledge, the understanding, the passing down of the commandments from their parents, that is now a curse, right? It says, because they are pure in their own eyes. They know better than the Most High. Because these are not, same way Christ said, these are not my words. What's coming from the parents is the fathers that was sent down throughout the ages. So now when you have a generation, a wicked seed, wicked generation of children that come up that are, they know better, right? I know I hear that, but, I have my own thoughts on how, what righteousness looks like. And they start coming up with their own thoughts, either based on what they may hearing from somebody else, or they may just have a wicked spirit in them, right? So it says that they are pure in their own eyes, and yet is not washed from their filthiness. There is a generation, oh, how lofty are their eyes, and their eyelids are lifted up, right? Meaning high-minded, proud, right? This generation, right, that thinks that they know better than their parents, which is ultimately the Most High. See, I ain't got to read that book to gain understanding of wisdom. You got to read that book. I don't have to read that book, right? I can do, I know good and bad and everything else. So you have a generation like today that's like that, right? It says in verse 14, there is a generation whose teeth are as swords and their jaw teeth as knives, to devour the poor from off the earth and the needy from among men, right? So words and the things that you advocate for, right? Christ gave insight on that the things that come out of a man, those is what defiles, because it comes from your thoughts. It comes from your rationalization and how you believe. So this is the same thing. They don't want to hear what the parents are saying. They don't want that chastisement. They don't want that guidance. They don't want to be cleaned from their filthiness. So now what happens? They become a curse, right? From their mother. Because this child doesn't want to hear judgment. In Deuteronomy, when you had a rebellious child, you brought him to the gates where the elders sat for judgment. And you brought them to the gates because you had exhausted all things. So I have to go and deal with them. I'm going to bring them to the gates. Let the elders of the people deal with them. And if the elders couldn't deal with them, the elders could not gain some type of remorse and repentance from them, try to change them, they were stoned. What is that? Deuteronomy, was it 19 or 21? I can't remember. 21? Just get the precept for me if you can. Deuteronomy 21 or what? I'm quoting it. But you as a parent had to realize that once you took your child who didn't want to listen, who was rebellious, to the gate, right? You was taking them, I don't know how you grabbed them up, took them to the gate. He said, elder, my son doesn't want to heed wisdom. My son doesn't want to listen to the Most High, right? Because now as a parent, you want to make sure that judgment doesn't come on you. Because if you don't deal with that, the Most High going to deal with that, and then the Most High going to deal with you. Deuteronomy 21 and 18 on down, right? That's what I quoted. So that's this generation. Now we have grace where, stop at 21, Deuteronomy 21, 18 and 21. But now we have grace where that child is indicative of us, right? Some of us was proud, lofty in our own eyes, thought we knew it all. But then what happened? Yahweh said, all right, I'm about to change his spirit. Because we all grew up in a sinful world in darkness, meaning without the light, right? Our parents didn't have this truth. They didn't teach it to us. And we grew up celebrating Halloween and Thanksgiving and, eating pizza with pork pepperoni and pork chops and shrimp, crab, and lobsters and wearing and doing all different kind of things. But in Titus, the 3rd chapter, it tells you, as a Titus 3 and 2, that we was all once deceived, following diverse lusts and things, until the Spirit came and changed our minds, that we now are opened up to righteousness, because we were the righteous from the past anyway. So here, it just shows you that in this thing called parenting, in this thing called family, the nation building, you had generations at different times where the children was wicked. The children didn't listen, right? proud. And there was a judgment. Go to Exodus chapter 21. Exodus 21. And 17. Exodus 21 and 17. It says, and he that curseth his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. And it's not talking about just F you, right? It's not just talking about, slanderous words. It's talking about even your actions. The things or the lack thereof you do can be viewed upon as a curse to your father or your mother. Because as we read in Deuteronomy 28th chapter, those curses was judgments. Those are action things that happen to the nation. So when you do certain things or not, that can be also viewed as a curse, right? Go to Mark, the book of Mark, chapter 7. Mark chapter 7. Mark chapter 7. And I'm going to start from I'm going to start from 8. Mark 7 and 8. It says, for laying aside the commandment of power, or Yahweh, ye hold the tradition of men, as the washing of pots and cups, and many other such like things ye do. So you had the Pharisees, chief priests, men, our elders at that time, where you had the laws of the Most High, but because of covetousness, because of pride, they began to establish their own laws that superseded the laws of the Most High, right? Because again, when you read the gospel, you see the spirit that Yahushua described how they were acting back then, right? They were powerful men who wanted to be seen, right? Who wanted to be seen and receive rewards or admiration from the people that lifted them up. So they started to do these things, come up with a tradition, and now the people began to follow these traditions and not so much in the same regard as the Most High's law. So Christ is getting on them about this, right? He's chastening them about this. But then he says in verse 9, and he said unto them, full well ye reject the commandment of God, that ye may keep your own tradition. So they laid aside the laws that pertain to righteousness coming from the Torah. Verse 10. So he's going to give an example. For Moses said, honor thy father and thy mother, and whoso curseth father or mother, let him die the death. Right? That's what we just read in Exodus 21 and 17. It's also mentioned, I think, in Leviticus 20 and 9, that when you curse or you go against your parents, you're liable to be put to death. Let them die the death because they're not giving them that just due. Right? Now, watch this. It says, but ye say, if a man shall say to his father or mother, it is Corban, that is to say, a gift, by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me, he shall be free. Right? So what was going on? So they came up with a tradition that certain things that they should have now obligated themselves to help out their mother or their father with, right? They said, nah, it's a gift, like an offering. This is for the Most High. This is really not for you. I can't get at to you. I can get at to the Most High, which ultimately went to who? The priests, right? Because when you look in the law, when we made offerings and things, where did the offerings go? To the priests, to the Levites, right? So now they're really playing and messing around with the law, because your honor just is not in words. It's in deed. It's in certain things that you can offer or do for them. But now when they need it, you can just say Corban, right? And it's like, well, they can't say nothing. So now they left in the lurch, right? And then at times these things was given or provided to the priests. That's wicked. So they set up their own tradition to combat the commandments of the Most High and to feed themselves, lift themselves up. So you know how many brothers and sisters, wicked is I don't know what, like we just read in Proverbs, the 30th chapter, know that they're supposed to be obligated to honor their father and mother in word and in deed. But now when the deed now has to happen, right? Corbin. They're like, what? Corbin. Hey. Right? And that was wicked because now it disannulled that. It says on, but ye say, if a man shall say to his father or mother is Corbin, that is to say, by a gift, by whatsoever thou mayest be profited, by me he shall be free. And ye suffer him no more to do aught for his father or his mother. Aught means anything, right? Anything that they should have done for them. That's how you understand now as far as for what the honor is really dealing with. It's like dealing with anything, certain things that you're supposed to do or provide for your parents and righteousness, right? Key in righteousness, they could now relinquish that and they'd be free from the obligation. Verse 13, making the word of Yahweh of none effect through your tradition, which ye have delivered, and many such like things do ye, right? So they was perverting the Most High's law, right? Casting it aside to set up their own selves. And the same things happen today. Same things still happen today when you go into some of the mainstream establishments and how these quote unquote reverends, pastors, deacons, bishops in these secular churches, how they're lifted up. They're doing the same things, right? They themselves don't even help out the people. They don't do the same things like a real servant, public servant of the Most High is supposed to do. It's all for their own pockets, all for their own pride to be lifted up. Jets and big cars, nice houses. I thought there was a sister a few years back. I can't remember. I don't know if it was Jake's or what's the other guy, Creflo. I think it was Creflo's church. The sister came in. It was like the image when you see brothers go to the strip club and they have like these big like bricks of ones. Sister came into the church and provided that as the offering to the church, right? And then when you did the backstory, the sister was like really destitute. Like she figured that doing that would really now give her blessings, right? And all it was now was going to the church. They didn't really have that same care for the congregation. So in that mind, when you look at how they acted back then, they're still here today in the reincarnation, how they operate, right? Doing things like this to disannul the name, the word, the laws of the Most High, but they still gonna get them tithes. You ain't got to keep the laws, but you still got to put them tithes in the church, right? And that's it. So that type spirit is what broke down our families.
Right. It become a status, even if they don't have it. They will fetch it to bring it to the congregation, because once they become a member, people look at them on the outside like they got it going on. But all in all, it's the pastor that's paying the profiting. It become a status symbol just to be a member of that church.
Right.
Just to show off, but you struggling.
Right.
But just because you did, you feel like you're gonna get some kind of blessing.
Right.
Someday.
That's why Yahushua said that they sit in Moses' seat. Right? The things that they say, do. But the things that they do, don't follow. Right? Your righteousness has to exceed the deeds of them. Right? Those who sit in Moses' seat, because this is the tradition that they came up with. That's not what Moses said. Right? So when they're speaking things pertaining to the law, you keep, because that's the Most High's words. Right? That's the Most High. When they said, thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not, but everything else, nah. I'm going to stand by that. Yeah, I agree with what you said, sir, Pastor. I agree on that. But the way in which you went out and gave the understanding or the actions and how you went, nah, I can't follow that. Right? Brother, a pastor told me one time when we were still up in North, we got to show love. I said, how do I show love, Pastor? He looked at me, cocked to the side, and came up and gave me a hug. He said, that's love, brother. That's love. So I said, okay. So if there's a brother who's a murderer and he's just vengeful, all I got to do is just go up and hug him and then walk away.
That's why you had it still.
Right?
Some love.
Yeah. And when I asked him that, he walked away from me and pointed like, love, brother. Love. Right? Because, again, that will go against the bottom line. If you start correcting each other, then you may not get those people that's in there. When you go against, you can't wear that. You can't do that. You can't follow that. You can't serve that. You can't worship that. Nah, that's against, bottom line of having people just come in as they are and freely drop money in. Right? So this Corbin here was something that was a tradition that went against how we're supposed to honor our parents. And that's why Christ said that by doing this, y'all make it where you don't have to do anything for your father or your mother. That's what the word ought means. So you still have to follow the authority and righteousness of your parents, right? Let's go back. Ecclesiasticus chapter 3 in the Apocrypha, we have verse 10. 3 and 10, it says, glory not in the dishonor of thy father, for the father's dishonor is no glory unto thee. For the glory of a man is from the honor of his father, and a mother in dishonor is a reproach to the children. So, you shouldn't be proud or happy of the stain that your parents bring, right? It should not be where you are comfortable or happy with that, right? Especially when they're doing things that are just overt, because it becomes a reflection on you, right? When they see them, their expectations is that's how you are, because you are a product of them, right? If they're held in honor, same thing happens. That when they see you and they know that you come from them, like, yo, I know your pops. Oh man, they're going to give you the red carpet. They're going to show you respect because they know that family tree that you come from. You come from a good family, right? The scriptures speak about that. Go to the book of Tobit. Go to the book of Tobit, chapter 7. Tobit, chapter 7. And I'm going to start at 1. It says, and when they were come to Ecbatane, they came to the house of Raguel, and Sarah met them. And after they had saluted one another, she brought them into the house. Then said Raguel to Etna, his wife, how like is this young man to Tobit, my cousin? And Raguel asked them, from whence are ye, brethren? To whom they said, we are of the sons of Nephthalim, which are captives in Nineveh. Right? That's a good precept, that third precept there. Link it with the first chapter, because when you read about his father keeping the high holy day, right? He's keeping the high holy day in Nineveh as a captive outside of Jerusalem, right? This is a good precept to let people know that, listen, we were not always just in Jerusalem. We was in other lands keeping it. So mark that as a good precept for the first chapter. But verse 4, it said, then he said to them, do you know Tobit, our kinsman? And they said, we know him. Then said he, is he in good health? And they said, he is both alive and in good health. And Tobias said, he is my father. Then Raguel leaped up and kissed him and wept and blessed him and said unto him, thou art the son of an honest and good man. But when he had heard that Tobit was blind, he was sorrowful and wept, right? So now they didn't know who these brothers were, right? They're doing inquisition. Where y'all from? Oh, we from the tribe of Naphtali. Okay, cool. Where y'all from? Oh, we coming from Nineveh, from the captivity. And you know a brother named Tobit? Yeah, we know him. That's my pop. What? Yo, that's a good brother right there. And without even fully judging his character, he went and blessed him and kissed him just on the report of knowing his pop. Now imagine if his pop was a wicked dude, was a thief, a criminal, murderer, right? If you'd have said, yo, you know Tobit? Yeah, I know him. Yeah, that's my dad. Make sure you put it. Because, yeah, if you could get it, right? Based on what the circumstances are, how his name is, that's how you're going to initially deal with the children.
And another pop culture reference. You guys remember it didn't do as good as the first Lion King, the animated. The second Lion King, you had Scar's son. He was supposed to be like having a thing with Simba's daughter, and he was catching a lot of flack. He looked like Scar. He wasn't the same character as Scar. You know what I mean? Like Scar's personality.
Mm-hmm.
But he was catching all that flack because of the bad guy that Scar was from the first. You kind of see that in the animated movie. But the scripture was Ecclesiasticus.
Hold on, let me put that down. You said Ecclesiasticus
42. As far as keeping things up, it's not so much from something comes from the back line, but it's you have a place where a lot of people are in and out.
Mm-hmm.
People to watch. Ecclesiasticus 42 and verse 6.
You said Ecclesiasticus 42 and what?
6.
Okay, read that.
Ecclesiasticus 42 and 6, it reads, short keeping is good where an evil wife is, and shut up where many hands are.
Trying to get the sense.
So yeah, just you want to keep good accounting. Like this chapter, first couple of verses is going into why it's good to keep account and to be a good steward when it comes to keeping records on things, tying it back to what we do when we dealt with the priests and how the Levites function, and how that would trickle down to what Israel would do. But then finally in this verse, where evil wife is, short keeping is good because you might have an arrangement to say, okay, we're going to keep this for this situation, that situation. Now, if the wife is evil for whatever reason, she might take that money and put it towards something that's not useful to the family or to the community. If this person is like personal authority, right? Depending on how wealthy he is. And then the second part, shut where many hands are, because if you're in a place, could be like a family that has an extended family living with them. There's a couple situations this could be applied. We have a lot of folks in and out the house for a certain period of time, or for an extended period of time. You want to keep account because if something goes missing that's needful or that you need to have account of, it'll be a situation of Mr. Nobody, right? Everyone's looking at each other, shrugging their shoulders. I didn't take it. I didn't see it. I didn't touch it. I don't know. I wasn't here, right? I was upstairs all day. I was outside all day. So to prevent that, just have a system in place. If you got house guests or extended family coming into your house in and out,
Mm-hmm.
we'll make sure you CYA,
Mm-hmm.
as they say.
Come. All right, let's go back. Ecclesiasticus chapter 3, and we have verse 11. I read 11. I'll just read it again, and then we'll go on. It says, for the glory of a man is from the honor of his father and the mother, and dishonor a reproach to the children, right? So the same way a father can have, a good name or a bad name, the mother can as well. This was like a part of my upbringing, where a lot of times when I grew up in the projects in Newark, I didn't have a lot of friends that had father figures fathers there in their lives. They were being raised by their mothers. And I had a good few of my friends whose mothers was on drugs, right? And, you know, being in the projects with a whole bunch of people, you know, people talk, kids slander and say certain things. So now when you see your mother's out there asking for drugs, she's looking all, you know, certain kind of way, being abused and certain things, the words carry. And that now falls on to the child, right? So now as a child growing up, when you have these things, slanders is being said about your mom, and they're like, yo, you see, look at his mom. And then the kid is like ashamed. The kid is like, damn, right? That becomes a traumatic thing. That's why it talks about, you know, not being comfortable with your parents being in dishonor, because that's definitely not a beautiful, you know, not something acceptable to the Most High, but also would have an effect on you. So we have an obligation to correct them or get them in line or try to get them away from whatever it is that they're doing, right? That should be our obligation as well as children growing up. And I remember there was a situation, there was a young kid who was doing that for his mother. Something went viral with it was like a kid, he was like 10 years old, 12 years old, and it was at a function and his mother was over there twerking on some guy. Right? So imagine that. You go in a party, you see your mother twerking on some guy in amongst a mixture of people. And the young boy, because they was recording it, and the young boy went and grabbed his mother and pulled her away. Like, pulled her away. And then when he pulled her away, she stood over there laughing. Like, you know, trying to laugh it all. Well, we just having fun. But he went on the side and almost started to cry because it was shameful, right? It was shameful that was her behavior. But he had to go intervene, a little 12-year-old kid, to intervene to go take his mother out of that situation, to cause, you know, to lessen more shame. That's the situations that we sometimes be in.
That's going to increase like manifold, especially since this COVID situation, you know, with COVID during those years, and the rise of OF.
Yeah.
To where a lot of these young kids now, middle school, high school, it'll almost be like trauma competition. See who had it the worst. You kind of did it already as far as, you know, my dad's locked up. My mom's straight on drugs, or vice versa. I haven't seen my dad since, you know, the 2000s, you know. But then with men being lovers of their own selves, promote themselves and doing all types of foolishness online, especially on the women's side of things, with you know, being online and, you know, showing all the things that God blessed you with. You have so many kids that are fall into that category. You know? It's just like, yeah, your mom's OnlyFans? Yeah, mine too. Welcome to the club. As opposed to the other way around, where you're like the outlier, then that becomes the new norm. Yes.
Yeah. So like the elder posted the scripture earlier, 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 5. When I call to remembrance the unfeigned faith that is in thee, which dwelt first in thy grandmother Louise, or was it Lois? Lois, and thy mother Eunice, and I am persuaded in thee also. Right? As far as for how, you know, that family structure starting with grandmother to the mother, and also came down to Timothy, right? Timotheus, and how he was reared up from his parents, right? Going from his youth, the water elder. So reading on in Ecclesiasticus chapter 3 and verse, we at 12. So we at 12. You see? So this is where we get into, like, man, you know, each one of these precepts, you know, you could spend, you know, it could carry you. So, you know, we always try to say we want to be judicious, but expeditious, and not repetitious. Cause sometimes I can get repetition, so I got to work on that too. So now, verse 12, Sirach 3 and 12. My son, help thy father in his age, and grieve him not as long as he liveth. And if his understanding fail, have patience with him, and despise him not when thou art in thy full strength. For the relieving of thy father shall not be forgotten, and instead of sins, it shall be added to build thee up. Right? So, so the children, when your father, gets up there in age, right, or he loses his wits, doesn't have, proper sense of judgment, it says we got to have patience with our fathers, with our parents, right? We got to help them out, which is going to cover up a multitude of sins for us. Remember, the promise was if we honor them, that it will give us length of days in the earth. What cuts down length of days? Sin, right? So when you sin, whether it be, unknown through ignorance or through temptation, you fell through a temptation because of your lust, but you recognize it and you repented. The Most High still has the marks, right? It would have said in Jeremiah that the Most High's sins of Judah is written with an iron pen, like it's there, right? But if you now go and do these things, Most High can take that one off. Oh, take that one off. Take that one off, right? Just by how you dealing with your parents, right? It's not even, granted, you can go out there, we'll get into this in the next chapter, when you go and you do alms and give gifts and things to the poor or do service to them, those things also covers up multiple sins. But just how you have that interaction with your parents, the patience that you have when they're starting to lose, focus, like King Solomon, right? King Solomon, when he got up there in age, he started to lose sight of judgment, and he made bad decisions with these wives, setting up different groves and things to go worship. So we got to have patience, because not only is it going to be for them, but it's also for you, because this is how you exercise the fruits of the Spirit. We're getting into this last night in the class about the fruits of the Spirit. And how do you gain, how do you mature, how do you abound in the fruits of the Spirit? Well, you have to have circumstances that are presented to you in order for you to now execute those things, right? When the father, his understanding failed. I'm dealing with that, both, my parents and my wife's parents are still alive. So now they're getting up there in age, especially my in-law. What they say is dementia or whatever the case may be, when you start really like forgetting things that was just obvious. It's like, hold on, you just did this. You just was here. Why did you not take that? I took it already. No, you didn't. Yeah, I did. When did you take it? I took it an hour ago. It's like, oh man, this is frustrating. And then usually what happens is you get so frustrated that you remove yourself from the situation. I can't deal with that. So get him out of here. It's frustrating to me. You lose patience. So now you send them out. You say, he got to go. He got to go into a nursing home. That's the frustration, because my daughter used to do CNA, and you go to the nursing home, and then what happens is a lot of the parents that's in a nursing home is in there. They're losing their understanding, but they're frustrated because what happened? They felt kicked out by the kids. They don't want to deal with me. Right? And then what happens? They'll come tomorrow. It's Father's Day. They'll come with some flowers and balloons. Hey, happy Father's Day, Daddy. Da, da, da. Be there for like 30 minutes, and then that's it. They don't see them for about another 3 months. Right? And then their remembrance of certain things that they did, it frustrates them. And then they start acting out, along with them losing their understanding. Right? So you consider that, because now when you are in the position and you're doing things for your parents, it might be that you fall into that situation. You start to, get an illness, or you start to lose your memory, or you start to do what? How would you want to be treated? Right? Go to 1 Timothy chapter 5. 1 Timothy chapter 5.
This is good. This is good. This is good to show that dimension when Christ talks about the two great commandments: love the Most High, with your heart, soul, and mind; love thy neighbors thyself.
Mm-hmm.
This deals with that second great commandment. This is how we can hang along the prophets. This is connected to
Mm-hmm.
that.
So 1 Timothy chapter 5 and verse 8, it says, but if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. Right? So when you read this chapter, it's going into widows, right? Those who don't have husbands, who are, who are out there, they don't have certain support. So now the priest, the brothers, was taking up certain different collections and monies and everything to deal with the widows. And you read it in the letters where certain men was like, listen, we got to do the work. We can't sit here and be dealing with the administration of tables and doing all this stuff. Get some other brothers to do that. But now in that administration, you now have to determine who's a widow, who's not a widow, and who now is needful for some of us to take care of them and who is not, right? Because you have some widows, just like Judith, when you read it in the Apocrypha, she was wealthy. She had servants and handmaids and certain things, so she was good. She probably had people to tend to her, right? And was able to distribute certain things. But then you may have others who don't, who may not have mind or the resources. So they had to take care of them. But they said, hold on. If any provide not for his own, you have the means to provide and help out with your household. And you don't, you're worse than an infidel. You're worse than someone who is not really, you're looked at as someone who's not even in this truth. Sacrilege. That's what you're like. Because that's not this faith. That's not what the Most High is building here. When it comes to family and brotherhood, and you don't want to do, you want to hold back, you want to call Corbin, I ain't got to do nothing, right? That's wicked. So if it's in your means, right, and it may not even have to be monetary, right? If it's in your means, you still have to put forth the effort. You still have to go and try to deal with them, right? You may not have the money. Somebody else may have the money will say, yeah, the state is going to take care and put it there, but I'm going to be there almost every day or every other day, or I'm going to try to make it there every weekend. My job is causing, but I can't be there. But I have, in my heart, I'm sincere. I want to go and look after her. I want to make sure that no one is mistreating her, that she feels comfortable, or that he feels well taken care of, that he doesn't feel slighted. Like, you have to now have those things in mind, right? Because if you don't, and you just say, man, I don't want to deal with that. Right? We're not talking about somebody who's saying that I don't believe in the Most High, this, that, and the third. There's still a balance on how you even deal with that. Like I said, my parents ain't in this truth. I know a lot of those who on the live streams, parents is not in this truth. But you still have a duty to exhibit, right? And if you don't, you choose not to, then remember the promise that the Most High was looking: safety, length, right? You want to have safety, protection, long length of days. If you do this, right? That's like a gift in itself. You gonna say something, Con?
Oh yeah, Ecclesiastes 8 and 6.
Ecclesiasticus 8 and 6. Good.
For Timothy 5 and
5 and 8.
Islam had monopoly on infidel.
Mm-hmm.
They think of Islam. It's so-called radical. Just means someone was unfaithful.
Mm-hmm.
You want me to read it?
Good.
Ecclesiasticus chapter 8, verse 6. Dishonor not a man in his old age, for even some of us wax old.
Mm-hmm.
That makes it kind of funny. Kind of making a joke. Well, I'm making a joke, but kind of like even some of us wax old. Like, you blink your eyes, and you'll, like you were saying earlier, you'll be in that same spot. You'll remember. I used to make fun of the old heads on the block. Oh man, now I'm one of those old heads now.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's coming back to me. So it's like, think about it now. Think about the time. It's like, all right, appreciate those days, that you had.
Fun. All right, let's go back. Yeah, we're almost a couple in. We got to speed up. So we have verse. Where we at? Verse 15. Come. It says, in the day of thine affliction, it shall be remembered, meaning the honor that you give unto your parents. Thy sin shall melt away as the ice in the fair warm weather. He that forsaketh his father is as a blasphemer, and he that angereth his mother is cursed of Yahweh. Right. So that's what we just read in 1 Timothy. It's like you're infidel. Infidel being the same line as being a blasphemer. If you do not do this, that's how the Most High views you. Verse 17, my son, go on with thy business in meekness, so shalt thou be beloved of him that is approved. The greater thou art, the more humble thyself, and thou shalt find favor before Yahweh. Right? So in this walk, we're going to increase with knowledge, with wisdom, with understanding, with certain gifts. As you continue on in this truth, it is imperative that you make sure that one of those fruits of the Spirit that you put to the forefront is meekness and being humble. Because if not, you will get prideful. What is that in Corinthians? Get the precept where it says, knowledge puffeth up. Right, you can find that. Knowledge puffeth up. Because if you don't bridle your spirit, like we talked about before in the class, if you don't bridle your spirit in this truth with the fruits of the Spirit, then you're just a person who's receiving all this, and then you will have ill intentions. You'll have misguided objectives. Like we have brothers, I always bring this up every now and again, where you have brothers who came into the truth because of knowledge, not because of righteousness, just because of the knowledge. They came, sat, got the precepts and everything else, but their whole objective was to just go out there and be viewed as something to the world, because that gets rewarded when you have knowledge. It's like how you go to colleges, you're a professor, they get paid $80,000, $100,000 to speak knowledge, but that's not what this is about. So we can't let knowledge or understanding allow us to become prideful. You got that in 1 Corinthians?
Yes, chapter 8, 1 to 3.
Read that, Baba Kusha.
1 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 1. Now as touching things offered unto idols, we know that we all have knowledge. Knowledge puffeth up, but charity edifies.
Mm-hmm.
And if any man think that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing yet as he ought to.
Right.
But if any man love God, the same is known of him.
Right. So it says, knowledge puffeth up, but charity edifieth, which are the virtues that come with when you're in tune in the Spirit. You begin to exhibit those virtues, right? And that's the key to making sure that you sustain yourself in this truth, so that you don't go out of the way and become prideful and do those things that now you're selfish, trying to find your own objectives. But it says, if any man think that he knoweth anything. So even me, I know I might have some breakdowns here and there. I know the breakdown of Jeremiah, John 3:16. I know Jeremiah 14:2. I know, someone could say, I know a lot of things, but in my mind, I don't know hardly anything. I don't know enough, right? So I'm still humble in spirit, to not think of myself as to be something. That's why he says, if any man thinketh he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing as yet he ought to know. Because remember, Paul said, it is foolishness to teach us who we are. This is foolishness. You should have been known this. So just because you understand this, that, and the third, you think you good now? You think you know it all? No. Right? You need to learn more than what it is that you know now. So I may think that I got 30% of the knowledge and understanding, maybe 25 that come from out of these scriptures. Right? I remember we was talking about whatever that precept was with Gabar. If Gabar is listening, we was here, and Gabar said, "I thought you knew all the scriptures." What? Are you kidding me? Sometimes you read a precept and you think you know the verse, and then you read it, and okay, I linked that precept with this, and then you're reading something else, and you're like, oh snap! Yahweh did say that he does things with double meanings. Yo, this is heavy. I never looked at that precept to go into, oh man. What you think you know, you don't know is enough. All this is a shadow of what's supposed to be there. A shadow. It's not the full image. It's a shadow of these things. So humble yourself. Go about your business in meekness. Don't let it get you thinking that you're more than what you are. Go to Proverbs chapter 16. Proverbs 16. And verse 18. Proverbs 16:18. It says, pride goeth before destruction, and an haughty spirit before fall. Right? So with that knowledge puffeth up, if you don't bridle it the right way, pride will seep in, and then you start thinking that you're more than what you are. Right? It says, better it is to be of a humble spirit with the lowly than to divide the spoil with the proud. So it's better to go and not make yourself to be much. Even Yahushua in the gospel, when he talks about going to a banquet, he said, don't go look to sit at the high seat. Go sit at the back. Go sit at the low seat. Rather be called up than to just assume that you should be sitting there. Right? Nah, that's not a humble spirit. That's a proud spirit that expects wherever he goes and he walks in the room, I got to sit here, head of the table. I got to sit right there. No, your spirit is off. Right? Your spirit is off. You go, anybody sitting here? Sure. And it's new brothers that just came in, and you somewhere out at a big thing, and you just sitting there. Oh, Shalom, how you doing, brother? And a brother walked by like, yo, what you doing there? Oh man, I'm sitting here talking with the brothers, man. These are some nice brothers, right? Because your spirit fits. You want to be with the brothers. You want to help build them up. The same way how you is with your children. We're new brothers. I want these new brothers to come in and be better than me. That's how the torch gets passed on. Right? So your spirit gotta be humble with the lowly. Right? Quiet.
James 5, verse 1 and 8.
James 5, 1 and 8.
This one will come.
Okay.
It's 5 and 8. It comes with when you've been in the truth for a minute, and then you forget how you started. You lose track of the time when you were in the world. You didn't know anything about the truth, and then all of a sudden, begin to start making claim about the knowledge you have, as if you did the research and you figured it out and you have experience and you got it all. That's when trouble comes, because in James 1 and 8, 1, 5 to 8, it tells you it's the Most High that gives you the knowledge, and once he decides that you getting too prideful, he'll take it away. All right, I'll take it away, because it's sometimes we lose track, thinking that it's our knowledge and we figured it out. All in all, it's the Most High that bless us with his grace, that give us this knowledge. It's not something we sought out of our own. So it's not our knowledge. When people speak in arrogance, like, you got to come here to get this knowledge. If you don't come here, you go over there. Those knuckleheads over there, they don't have the knowledge. We got the knowledge. That's arrogant.
Khan, I see Lock Swap. It's the precept. Khan, do you have the last three precepts that was called out?
1 Corinthians 8, 1 to 3.
That's 1 Corinthians 8, 1 to 3.
Proverbs 16, 18.
Proverbs 16, 18.
And James 5 and 8.
And then James 5 and 8. So I think it's within those three.
And then these two.
Okay.
Proverbs 25, verses 2 and 3.
Proverbs 25, 2 and 3.
Where it reads, if I may.
Go ahead.
Proverbs 25 and verse 2. It is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter. And it says in verse 3, the heaven for height and the earth for depth and the heart of kings is unsearchable. So just the scriptures to remind you of the disposition that a ruler with authority should have especially amongst our people. Just showing you, like you said, this is talking about kings. And even they had to humble themselves. Like, okay, let's figure this out. Make sure I do it right.
Okay.
Because, people count.
You say you're another one?
Just that.
Just that one? All right, come. Also, Matthews 18:4, and then 1 Peter 5. So Matthews 18. And 4. Actually, I'm going to start at 3. I'm going to start from 1. You got to get the context. So Matthews 18:1, at the same time came the disciples unto Yahushua, saying, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And Yahushua called a little child unto him and set him in the midst of them. And he said, verily I say unto you, except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Whosoever therefore shall humble himself as this little child, the same is greatest in the kingdom of heaven, right? So that being converted is to remove malice, pride, envy, hate, all that aside, and then now take on being meek, lowly, humble. That's what Yahushua meant when it's converted. Because when you are in the world, right, you have all those types of things. Now, somebody ain't gonna say, well, I was in the world. I wasn't like that. I was still humble, right? But you got to be humble with this truth. Come converted into this and then accept what this is. Because somebody may be humble in the world, but prideful, stubborn, right? You may not make something of yourself, but you got a stubborn spirit, right? So when it comes to this aspect, you have to now take upon this characteristic, because he's speaking to the disciples, right? These men were already now walking with Yahushua and then trying to understand, how do I become great in this truth? You got to be humble and meek, right? Go to 1 Peter chapter 5. First Peter chapter 5. And verse 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 5. It says, likewise, ye younger, submit yourselves unto the elder. Yeah, all of you be subject one to another, and be clothed with humility. For Yahweh resisteth the proud and giveth grace to the humble. Verse 6. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of power, that he may exalt you in due time, casting all your care upon him, for he careth for you, right? So again, humility is very key, right? There's certain key virtues that are at the top of the list. Patience, long-suffering is one. Meekness and being humble is another, right? Those are ones that are at the top of the list. Because like the Khan just mentioned, you got some that are in this truth and they beat their chest, right? They beat their chest. And not only do they beat their chest, they loved to be lifted up, right? They love to be lifted up and made a spectacle of that says, yeah, look at my elder. My elder is better than y'all elders. And nah, man, that's the wrong spirit. Paul spoke about that in Corinthians. He said, I'm glad I baptized none of y'all. I'm glad I baptized none of y'all. Look how y'all carrying on. I was baptized this guy, baptized that guy. Listen, man, that's not what we in here for. We in here to preach the gospel. He went on to say, if anybody would boast, I the more. But I don't boast in that regard. I burst in my infirmities. All the hell that I'm catching, that's what I'm going to boast on. All the hell that I'm catching, the tribulations that I'm going in. Not all this other stuff that y'all be doing. No, I'm going to tell you, explain to you what I went through when I went to Corinth, what I went through when I went to Troas. So you be like, Dad, that's what you got to do in this truth. That's what you got to be subject to. Nah, man, I don't know about that. That's what this calls for, right? So you have to have a right mind when you are operating in this truth. So let's go back. So we're in verse 19 now. It says, many are in Ecclesiasticus 3, or Sirach chapter 3, verse 19. Many are in high place and of renown, but mysteries are revealed unto the meek, right? Mysteries revealed unto the meek. We just read in Matthew's, the 18th chapter, where Yahushua likened how you should be humble to a little child, where a little child is just humble, is ready to absorb all information. It's looking at the physical and the words that comes out of a person. He's looking at the body language, like, yo, that's what you got to do. That's where you got to walk. That's the clothes you got to put on. And he's checking out certain things. He's not stubborn. He's ready to absorb. So you now have to be the same way, even if you want the secrets. You want the knowledge. You want the wisdom. Go to Luke 10. Luke 10. You want to get the breakdowns that most people don't know. You want the Most High to work with you, like an Ezra or a Daniel, right? Luke chapter 10 and verse 21. It says, in that hour, Yahushua rejoiced in spirit and said, I thank thee, O Father, Lord of heaven and earth, that thou hast hid these things from the wise and prudent and hast revealed them unto babes. Even so, Father, for it seemeth good in thy sight, right? Babes, as far as for there's certain individuals who have a very humble spirit, who are meek, right? You may have some people who make, prudent in certain things, but this one here, he's revealed to those who had a right spirit on him. Daniel's from his youth, the Most High touched the spirit. That's what you read about him in the story of Susanna, right? Not just in the book of Daniel's when you read it in the Old Testament, but it goes into his youth, what type of spirit that he had. So it makes sense that the Most High would deal with him like that. Elder just put up the scripture about Timotheus and how, he was reared up as a child from his grandmother and mother in a righteous spirit. And then as he became an adult, Paul set him up, and now he was over the churches, right? He's now over the churches to guide the whole church because of the spirit that's on him. All right, so let's go back. Ecclesiasticus chapter 3, and we at 20. It says, for the power of Yahweh is great, and he is honored of the lowly. Seek not out the things that are too hard for thee, neither search the things that are above thy strength, right? So there's some things as it pertains to either knowledge, wisdom, understanding, or even certain things that might be, above your power or strength to deal with. Let somebody else deal with it. Go get counsel, right? You're trying to get certain breakdowns. You want to understand the length of time that Daniel's talking about, but right now you still don't have the understanding of the law. Go deal with the milk first. That'll come later on. Don't try to force certain things. That's what happens. Sometimes people try to force it according to how they want to receive it, what they wanted to have happen on their timeline, right? And you can't do that, right? You can't force the spirit. It'll come in due time. So don't try to make things happen according to your timeline, right? It says, but what is commanded thee, think thereupon with reverence, for it is needful for thee to see with thine eyes the things that are in. It is not needful for thee to see the things with thine eyes that are in secret, right? So you got brothers who be like, yo, I seen in the book of Ezra and in Daniel's that they wrote books that was now held back. Like those books wasn't published. I'm going to go find those books. I'm going to go find those books because nobody know where the books is at, right? And you focusing on these books and all these other different manuscripts, and you not following what's right in front of you. You're not keeping the very essence of the milk laws that's in front of you, but you want to go find these deep breakdowns from these books that you don't even know where they are.
when you find the books, you hide the books so other people don't have it, so they can come to you.
Yeah, you're gonna start now puffing yourself up. Yeah, I got the other 47 books that Daniel hid, or the ones that Ezra hid. I got them. Yo, these books is on another. It'll take you to another. See, everybody don't have the knowledge. See, y'all got partial knowledge. See, that was a temptation by Satan because you wanted to be viewed as the knowledgeable one. It took you out. Stop dealing with things that's above your strength. It's not. Listen, the Most High want me to know what those other books are. He'll reveal them in time. Yahushua come. I'll ask Yahushua about it. But I'm just trying to keep these laws, man. I'm trying to be a good brother, good husband, right? A good son. I'm trying to make sure that I adhere to the moral and civil laws. I'm trying to make sure that when certain travails and tribulations come, I use the wisdom that comes from the scriptures on how to maneuver and overcome. That's my main focus right now. What that 47 book that I don't listen, that's not imperative. I don't read any of the scriptures nowhere where the Most High tells us that we got to go find those books to get the answers before we get the kingdom. It's not there. So stop. There's always been a spirit, especially like the past 10 years. There's a heavy spirit with people trying to deal with things above their strength. And there's always the brothers and sisters who don't know nothing. They don't know basic breakdowns of certain things, but they want to know all that other stuff.
Esau figured it out. They jack up the price. Because the more you want it, you jack up the price. You're gonna find the money so you can get it.
Just to get half page. Yeah. worth of history.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take the PDF.
Right.
Well, even with that, let me make sure I can explain that. Like, just the part that I need that aligns with Most High's prophecy. That's the part we need to use if we're going to do that, because it's not to quench the spirit. What happens is, like you guys are bringing out, brothers and sisters become flooded with the spirit. I want to deal with other books as opposed to, hold on, why am I to look at this other book? The whole why about what I'm doing should be to find or to add to the prophecy that's already in the scriptures, to complement what the scriptures already said. All those other details, okay, that's fine, but it's not needed.
Right. Because other books, right? When like the Most High Spirit, like the Most High's word, a bunch of other books is a bunch of other spirits that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
So why not dealing with the spirit, which is the scriptures? But if you're mature enough, right, to decipher the bones and separate the bones from the meat, yeah, just be it. But you just started to learn, but you want to get all this book confusing the very true spirit that you're seeking after by confusing it with other spirits, different books.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That goes for the newbies, that goes for folks that are in for a minute. And then what can happen, right? You've been in for 15, 20 years, 25 years, now you start second guessing. Oh, it can't be that simple. Fear God, keep the commandments. No, it's got to be more to it than that. We got to be missing something. And you have the older brothers and sisters that now get curious. Later on, you have that too.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's kind of speed the pace here. We're 2 hours in, even out of the first chapter. Verse 23, it says, "Be not curious in unnecessary matters, for more things are showed unto thee than men understand." Right? So don't be curious in unnecessary matters. Don't be like a busybody into dealing with this thing and that thing. You all over the place, right? You can write down first 2 Thessalonians chapter 3 and verse 11. 1 Peter chapter 4 and 15. 2 Thessalonians 3 and 11. 1 Peter 4:15, right? Both of those precepts speak about things when you are classified as a busybody. Busybody is somebody who meddles in things that does not pertain to them, right? You do, whether it be gossiping or you want to be in the mix, and you don't need to be in, you don't have to be in everything, right? You don't have to be everywhere and in everything, right? Especially things that don't concern you. If somebody calls you in to say, hey, I need you to help out, counsel or whatever, or listen to what this person, But you don't have to be in the mix of everything. There's a spirit where Jake, we just always want to be in the mix of everything. Whether I got the phone out, video on it, and everything else, so I can go and share it. Nah, don't be a person that wants to deal with everything. Verse 24, for many are deceived by their own vain opinion, and an evil suspicion have overthrown their judgment. Yep.
That's a flex.
That's it. Right. Woo. For many are deceived by their own vain opinion. Right. That's why it tells you in Jeremiah 17:9, the heart is deceitful and desperately wicked. Right. Who can know it? Heart talking about your mind. You leave your mind to itself, man, all types of thoughts and things start coming in. And then you start coming up with these vain, unprofitable opinions, not facts, just what you think or how you feel, right? So there's a caution on your mind. Go to Ecclesiasticus chapter 5 and verse 2. It says, follow not thine own mind and thy strength to walk in the ways of thy heart, right? Don't follow your own mind, right? You got to make sure that your mind is in alignment with the Most High. Let me get another precept. That was 5 and 2.
5 and 2
In Ecclesiasticus. Go to Ecclesiasticus chapter 37. Ecclesiasticus chapter 37, and I'm going to start at 12. Now it's about to give you the balance, right? Ecclesiasticus 37 and 12. It says, but be continually with a godly man whom thou knowest to keep the commandments of the Lord, whose mind is according to thy mind, and who will sorrow with thee if thou shalt miscarry, right? So you want to align yourself with righteous brothers and sisters, pardon me, that now have like mind as far as for those who are trying to keep the Most High's commandments. And if you step off, you mess up, they'll be there to correct you. And sorrow when you miscarry. Dang, brother, I can't believe you did that. Yeah, man, I fell, and then you confess your sins, and like, all right, brother, we'll work on that. I'll try to make sure that you don't get into those situations and circumstances. Blah blah blah. Right, verse 13. And let the counsel of thine own heart stand, but there is no man more faithful unto thee than it. Right. So now, when it comes to now certain decision makings, you now have to make the judgment call based on what information is there presented to you. Because sometimes people give you bad advice, bad counsel. It may not be like that might work for him, but it might not work for me, right? So you have to do that. However, it says in verse 14, for a man's mind is sometimes wont to tell him more than 7 watchmen that sit above in a high tower, right? So that's what happens. You start to come through all different kind of options, right? This says here, this one here, this one here, that one here. If I do that, then what's going to happen? I got to worry about that. So you coming through all the different thoughts in your mind about certain decisions that you have to make. But these decisions shouldn't just be your own thoughts. Because the next verse says, and above all this, pray to Yahweh, the Most High, that he will direct thy way in truth, right? So you now want to go and follow it according to truth, right? That the wisdom and understanding that comes from this allows you to make firm and wise decisions. Last precept, it says, let reason go before every enterprise and counsel before every action. The reasoning comes from where? From the scriptures, right? That's what it says in Isaiah 1:18. Come, let us reason together. We reasoning with whom? The Most High, right? That's Isaiah 1:18. I think it's 1:18, right? So let reason go before every enterprise, every thought, every decision. You got to make sure that you check with the Most High, that I ain't mess up. Like, I'm going to do this, but is that going against the Most High? All right, I think I've covered that. Covered the bases, so this is probably good. And if you have doubt, that's when you go and you get some counsel. Yo, I was thinking about doing this with this. What's your thoughts? And the brother or sister give you thoughts. All right, I take that to heart. All right, I'm gonna sleep on that. And you going through, like you said, 7 watchmen. You thinking about it, and then you say, all right, this is in alignment with Yahweh Yahushua. All right, cool. I'm gonna do this.
Right. That's why you have people with vain. I mean, we all have. We on a need to know basis. Nobody likes to be ignorant on something or a subject.
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't know something, our mind will give us an answer, even if it's not the right answer, but we will get it. And our mind is kind of like AI. You pumped it, and it keeps giving you answers, giving you answers, giving you answers, giving you without checking if it's the fact or not. That's what you want to know. So I'm going to give you information.
Right. All right, let's go back. We at verse 25 now. It says, without eyes thou shalt want light. Profess not the knowledge, therefore, that thou hast not. That's key. Profess not the knowledge, therefore, that thou hast not. Meaning, if you don't know, it's cool to say you don't know. Right? I don't know what that is. I don't know who that person is. I don't understand that precept. Help me, enlighten me. Right? You should be comfortable being humble and saying, I don't know. Right? What? They're gonna look at you a certain way, like, what? You don't know that? I don't know. I'm being honest. I don't know. I want to know now. Help me. I'm not going to give you a false answer. Right? Jump down to chapter 5 and verse 12. It says, Ecclesiasticus 5 and 12, it says, if thou hast understanding, answer thy neighbor. If not, lay thy hand upon thy mouth. Honor and shame is in talk, and the tongue of man is his fall. Right? So, if you don't know, figuratively saying, cover your mouth. Don't say nothing. Shut up. Right? It's not needed for you to say anything. Verse 26. A stubborn heart shall fare evil at the last, and he that loveth danger shall perish therein. Self-explanatory. You can link that stubborn heart with 1 Samuel chapter 15:23. He talks about how rebellion is like witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Right? So you know how the Most High feels about idolatry. It's the first commandment. You're supposed to have no other God before him. Right? That would lead to death. Anybody come and try to take you away from the Most High, give you another power, that's death. That's why it says what it says. Right? They will perish therein. Verse 27. An abstinent heart shall be laden with sorrows, and the wicked man shall heap sin upon sin. Right? So again, when we read these chapters, or Proverbs, Ecclesiasticus, Wisdom of Solomon, and then you have bits and pieces here and there, it's really getting into the moral aspect. That's why we said you got high holy days, ceremonial laws, then you have moral laws, civil laws, dietary laws. The moral laws is now what you get into here, right? This is how you are supposed to conduct yourself while you're walking in this truth. 28, in the punishment of the proud, there is no remedy, for the plan of wickedness have taken root in him, right? So if you stay in being a proud spirit, proud heart, there's nothing there's no fix for it. Can't pray it away. That person has to humble himself, right? And then be converted first through humbleness, and then he will be taught, right? You got to convert yourself from that old man, from the ways of the world, before you can now enter into righteousness. Verse 29, the heart of the prudent will understand a parable, and an attentive ear is the desire of a wise man, right? So the prudent will understand a parable. Those who put the time in, right? Precept upon precept, they will begin to get understanding and logic from the precepts over time, because they're attending the classes, they're asking the questions, they're sending out text messages. Yo, what's this? I don't understand what that is. What's that talking about? Boom. Right? And you wanting to hear the answer. You wanting to get the precept, right? You're an attentive ear. You're not distracted, right? They didn't take your whole focus away with that over there. You're not consistently attentive. No. you in this, and then after a while, you begin to get more of the secrets and the breakdowns. You can write down Proverbs 18:15. Proverbs 18:15 for verse 29. The heart of the prudent getteth knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeketh knowledge. Right? That's that attentive ear. All right, that's Proverbs 18:15. You could also put down chapter 6 of Ecclesiasticus, verse 32. Ecclesiasticus 6:32. My son, if thou wilt, thou shalt be taught. And if thou wilt apply thy mind, thou shalt be prudent. If thou love to hear, thou shalt receive understanding. And if thou bow down thine ear, thou shalt be wise. Stand in the multitude of the elders and cleave unto him that is wise. Right? As you read on down, it goes into that humble spirit that's wanting to listen and gain knowledge upon knowledge. All right, so let's go back.
Was that last verse?
That was chapter 6, verse 32 on down. I stopped at 34 though. In Ecclesiasticus. Actually, you can stop at 35. It says, be willing to hear every godly discourse, and let not the parables of understanding escape thee. Right? So again, 6:32 on down to 35.
And I got one more Ecclesiasticus. Ecclesiasticus chapter 17 and verse 6. Ecclesiasticus chapter 17 and verse 6. Going to tell you, Nathan. But it says in verse 6, counsel and a tongue and eyes and ears and a heart gave he them to understand.
Mm-hmm.
But I like it because it's like we'll say, and earlier to say in the world, you see it in the scriptures. So you got 2 eyes, you got 2 ears, you got 1 mouth. So just the fact you got more one than the other, you spend more time doing the other. So that, yapping as they say that.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be funny when people had 2 mouths. That's crazy.
All right, so reading on Ecclesiasticus 3:30, water will quench a flaming fire, and alms make an atonement for sins. Right? Alms make an atonement for sins. You can link that with Tobit 12:9. Tobit 12:9, where it says, for alms doth deliver from death, and shall purge away all sin. Those that exercise alms and righteousness shall be filled with life. Long days. That's another one of promise. Right? So alms deliver from death when you do it in combination with righteousness. Some people just do alms. Right? You just go out there and do charitable works, feed the poor, this, that, and the third, get a little money here and there, but no righteousness. Right? We know Yahweh cares about the righteousness. Right? You ain't doing the will of the Father, I don't know you. He says in Matthew 7. So you got to put them together. Verse 31, and he that requiteth good turns is mindful of that which may come hereafter. And when he falleth, he shall find a stay. Meaning you stored up so many treasures of good works. When you stumble, you can now, as they say, use one of your lifelines. Right? Use one of the lifelines that you stored up, because those alms delivered you from death. You got 1, you got 2. It's like playing the video game. You got like 5 lives, 7 lives. And as you go into certain video games, if you ever play video games, you can find additional lives, right? You're going through here, you find like, oh, I got another life over here. Oh, I got another life over here. And the reality of it, by you doing charity and brotherhood, charitable works between the nation, that's what's doing it. So that's why it says here, and he that requited good turns is mindful of that which may come hereafter. And when he falleth, he shall find a stay. Right? Meaning he's not going to be moved out of the way. He can use those good works that he put to now turn away that sin.
Verse in Ecclesiasticus is like the reversal for this.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 8 and 19. This is the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Ecclesiasticus chapter 8 and verse 19, it reads, open not thy heart to every man, lest he requite thee with a shrewd term.
Okay. All right, so now we're going to jump into chapter 4.
Oh, still
Yeah, that's why I tried to say we got it, but Salaki and pardon me, like I said, sometimes there's so much that can come out of each one precept that, maybe I'll be a little bit more judicious in reading those that are grouped together because it could be a lot. So now we're going to jump into chapter 4 and verse 1. It says, my son, defraud not the poor of his living, and make not the needy eyes to wait long. Make not a hungry soul sorrowful, neither provoke a man in his distress. And it says, add no more trouble to an heart that is vexed, and defer not to give to him that is in need. Right? Go to Deuteronomy chapter 15. Right? So now we're touching on the poor. Deuteronomy 15. And start at verse 7. Deuteronomy 15 and 7. It says, if there be among you a poor man, one of thy brethren within any of thy gates in the land which the Lord thy power giveth thee. Right? So right off the bat, sometimes people feel away when we talking about we talking about somebody in Israel. Like, see, that's kind of jacked up, brother. Because everybody, what happened if it was a Edomite that was poor? What happened if it was a Moabite that was poor? Well, right here it says, if there be among you a poor man of one of thy brethren within any of thy gates. So everything that we read from here on out is specific to one of our own, right? It says that which the Lord thy power giveth thee, thou shalt not harden thine heart, nor shut thine hand from thy poor brother, but thou shalt open thine hand wide unto him, and shalt surely lend him sufficient for his need in that which he wanted. Beware that there be not a thought in thy wicked heart, saying, the 7th year, the year of release is at hand, and thine eye be evil against thy poor brother, and thou givest him not or naught. And he cry unto Yahweh against thee, and it be sin unto thee. Right? So now we're commanded that we have to do this to our brothers. If it was another nation, that's on your own discernment, right? If you see an Edomite out there, it's a woman, she's under the stoplight, and she got 5 kids, you're like, damn, that's just jacked up. You know what? I'm going to give her some crumbs. All right. That's on you. But if you at the light and you like, I ain't giving her nothing. You got a thing full of change over there. You could give her a quarter or something, like, I ain't giving her nothing. You drive her. That is not sin unto you, right? Because she is not one of thine own. But if it is one of your own, and if you have means, you have something to give your brother, right? With discernment, meaning sometimes brothers want to take money and go do some other stuff. So you have to use inquisition, as I should say, right? Find out what's going on with that brother or sister, right? Or you need some food, cool. I'll help you out with some food. What do you like or you don't like? I will get that for you, right? Because sometimes they may take the money and go do something else with it. But if it's in your means, lend what's sufficient. This is why Yahushua gave the parable of the Good Samaritan. The Samaritan man was not an Israelite, right? He was a heathen that dwelt in the land of Samaria, and Yahushua paired him with a Levite and a priest. But the Samaritan, the heathen man, came, took the brother in that parable, and then took care of him. And then when he was now let to go on his way, he gave him what? Money to take care of all the things he needed. So that parable wasn't to just highlight that, see, we should just be cool with the heathen, the Samaritans. No, it was to showcase and say, look, it's a shame, you Levites, you priests, that you got a heathen man that's doing more for your brothers than you would do for your own. It's in the law. This is the wisdom behind it. It's in the law. Because he says, if you don't do this, it's a sin unto you. Right? So now it becomes a part of the commandment. And that what happens is we turn a blind eye, right? We get an evil eye. And then he likens the 7th year where it's like, oh, it's the 7th year release. So that which was lent out, you don't have to be exact. So now you know the brother is in need of some money. You know he's in need of something. And you like, nah, I'm not going to give it to him, man. I want that back. You good. Most High blessed you. That brother or that sister, they may need it for right now. And you want to turn a blind eye, man. That's wicked, right? So again, there's a balance to how and what you do. You want to look out for your people, but you want to use some discretion. You want to have inquisition on how you are helping them out.
Right. This is pretty much social welfare established by the Most High within the children of Israel. That's why it says the kingdom of the Most High is within you. If you consider yourself to have the wisdom of the Most High, you are someone who should uphold that social welfare in regards to your people, right? And concerning the other nation, they got their own social welfare in their system. They should seek for that. But with us, the way we operate, when we read the scriptures, we should institute or implement the social welfare as long as we know the law and apply.
Right. Nobody say nothing to Amalek when they do it. Right? Amalek do their own social works and things for their own, and not even all Edom, just for Amalek. Right? Just for those who now have converted into now following those customs. Right? They set up their own stuff. Nobody complains. Nobody says that's wrong. Why are they not extending that to everybody else? Right? That's what we do. Oh, that's wrong. Why are you not going to do it for that guy? See, I don't even want to be a part of that. And nothing gets done.
Kind of like what Tobit was doing. And you'll be surprised how the Most High lets resources flow through your hand for the fact that you keep those laws. Now you become a channel that the Most High channel, because he knows you will use that resources and implement the law. Right? So that's why sometimes some people in Israel may have, and some may, it's not for the sake that the Most High make it pass through your hands so you can keep those laws, because you show and prove of keeping those laws.
Right. What is that scripture in Timothy's? There's a precept in Timothy's. Right. 1 Timothy chapter 6. 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 17. So 1 Timothy 6 and 17, it says, charge them that are rich in this world. So like you said, some people may have the resources. Some people may have the funds and the things that now the Most High has blessed them with. Like, what's the brother that's in the gospel that took down Yahushua's body off the cross? Joseph of Arimathea, right? It says he was a rich man, but not outwardly because he feared the people. But he was rich and still went and did good or righteous things. So it says, charge them that are rich in this world that they be not high-minded, nor trust in uncertain riches, but in the living power who giveth us richly all things to enjoy. So money, like I said, is defense. So sometimes the Most High may give you those things for your enjoyment, but don't be high-minded with it, right? Don't start being proud and boastful with it, being outlandish. Most High bless you. You got a lot of money. All right, cool. You get a decent car, right? Get a decent car. Now you got 5 cars, 30-inch rims. For what? Why you got 5 cars? You know that those that's in your neighborhood, they don't have no more boys and girls club. They don't have no more basketball courts and things that they can go out there and exercise, certain frustrations, and they don't have none of that. It's in your means that you can go help out within your neighborhood. But you went and took that to get a 5th car, and you ain't hardly driving none of them because you getting chauffeured everywhere. This is there for sure. You enjoying it too much, brother. You're doing too much. So it says here, verse 18, that they do good, that they be rich in good works, right? So the good works is righteous works, right? As far as for the law and what you do within the law, like we read in Deuteronomy, ready to distribute. So you got to take what resource you have and give out. share out, right? Distribute to the poor, distribute to the widows, distribute to those who are in need. It says, willing to communicate, laying up in store for themselves a good foundation against the time to come. Because it might be a time where, guess what? That money ain't gonna matter much. Ain't nobody taking dollars. Ain't nobody care about your car, right? So there may be a time where you're going to need those good works that's stored up as lifelines in the heavens that you can rely on and get yourself out of jams. It says that they may lay hold on to eternal life, right? So that's the warning. That's the admonition in Paul's letter to those that was under Timothy's. So now going back to Deuteronomy chapter 15 and 10, it says, thou shalt surely give him, and thine heart shall not be grieved when thou givest unto him, right? So now it's going even to the spirit of it, because you given, but you given begrudgingly. Why? Because the law said it. So I want to keep the commandments. You want to be like that brother in the gospel who says, I keep all the commandments. His heart was jacked up now, and Yahushua exposed it by saying, you know, give away all that you got. He said, nah, right? Because he knew his heart was not right. He was just going about it. Sometimes people be robotic with doing things, but their heart is not joyful in doing it, right? That was one of the fruits of the spirit that we got in during the class, right? You got to be joyful, got to be happy. But now you giving away, and you kind of like, damn, really want to do this. Here you go, brother. Here you go, brother.
You punishing him.
Yeah.
You want to hit him with it.
You might not even say or do anything to the brother or the sister or whoever you may get into, but in your heart, right? The most I see it. The most I see it. Right? So that's why it says, thou shalt surely give him, and thine heart shall not be grieved when thou givest unto him. Because that for this thing, the Lord thy power shall bless thee in all thy works. That's what you should focus on. Like, you know what? I'm giving this brother 5, 10, 20, whatever. I'm going to give him some food. I'm going to give him this. Man, Most High will. Later on, when I don't know what happens, the Most High can, remember some of the good deeds that I did to those brothers, and I didn't exact it, right? I did it because I wanted to do it. Because if I was in that situation, damn, I can imagine how if I was hungry and I ain't had nothing in a day and a half and I needed some food, I've been out here, I would want to get some food. So I feel that I want to make sure that that person is well fed, and I'm happy with it. I'm not looking to come back and be like, yo, remember last week? Brother, I gave you some food. I got a bucket here in my car. It's been a little dirty. Can you wash my car? I'll give you some more food. You got some people who want tit for tat, right? Nah, we don't, we don't always have to be that way. That's sometimes when you see brothers who come up to the school when they see us out there, like, yo, I'll clean up, I'll do whatever. Just give me $1. You ain't gotta do that, brother. You need $1 here. Right? You ain't gotta do favors for me. You ain't gotta do favors for this. It means here you go, brother.
Favor for favor.
Yeah.
Self-audit. You look at the both sides, like both sides. Both sides look all week. I did.
Done. Mm-hmm. It says, for this thing the Lord thy power shall bless thee in all thy works and in all that thou puttest thine hand unto. Verse 11, key. For the poor shall never cease out of the land. Therefore I command thee, saying, thou shalt open thine hand wide unto thy brother, to the poor, and to the needy in thy land. So the Most High was going to always have a circumstance where there was going to be some poor in the land for us to execute the law, right? For us to be able to execute it. That's why when you go into the Feast of First Fruits, and it tells us not to glean the corners of our crops. When you read in Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, we'll get to that in a month and a half or so. It says to leave the corners of your crops for the poor and the needy, so they have something to eat. Right? There used to be a time back in the day, I remember when I was growing up in certain neighborhoods, that you had a whole bunch of trees and stuff that, it grew fruit. Right? You walking by like, oh, snap. Walk and eat. It used to be like that back in the 80s, right? I don't know. 90s started to get a little scary and dicey. And then over time, what happened? You don't see it. You can't go through the woods or go through certain areas because everything is monetary now. Right? They planted certain things and they restricted it, so you got to come to them. That was a part of the curse, Deuteronomy. Everything you want, you got to go to them. But it used to be that way, so that we could fulfill being able to provide for the poor and the needy. All right. So all of this now comes back on us as an example for us to exercise the Most High's will and making sure we tend or give to the poor. You can write down Matthew 25, 34 to 40. When Yahushua goes into when you have fed or clothed or did for any one of these, you've done it unto me. And the disciples came by and was like, yo, Yahushua, when did I feed you? When did I clothe you? He said, if you did it to one of the least, to the little ones, you did it unto me. Right? Getting into those who are in need, like the poor in need. And also Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 13. Let me see if I got the right one. Hebrews chapter 13. And 3. Actually, no, Hebrews chapter 13 and 1. It says, let brotherly love continue. Right? Brotherly love continue. Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares. Meaning, at times when you may be thinking you're doing something for the needy, for the poor, it could be just like in the story of Tobit, where the Most High had Raphael, Allah, the healing angel, be as if he was one of their kindred, right? He was an angel walking in the midst of them, right? So you're entertaining. And imagine you dealing with an angel. You thinking it's just a regular old brother. You talking to him some kind of way. You dealing with him some kind of way. But you doing it to the angel of the Most High. One of the messages that stand before the Lord, right? So your character always has to be on point. It don't have to be that the angel has to announce himself like he did at the end of Tobit, right? Nah. Tobias was on point throughout, right? So that's how we're supposed to be. You got to consider that person, that's my brother. He's in need. But, man, it could be like a secret shopper, right? It could be like the secret shopper where somebody's coming into my place of business and they're trying to make sure that I'm always on point, right? And it's Mike Allah, right? And you done did a good deed, and all of a sudden Mike Allah reveals himself. I am Mike Allah. Stand before you, like, what? And you bow down and you're doing all that. And you're like, oh, man, I can't believe it. If that happened to you, you probably be on point forevermore. Forevermore. Because now you're like, I can't believe that happened. Right? So now I got to always be on point. But now, with the absence of Yahushua and the angels, it's a faith tester to see how much you're going to do. All right? So that was Hebrews 13, 1 and 2. Proverbs 28, 27. All right, and I got to stop because there's so many precepts. There's so many precepts. So Proverbs 28, 20, I think it's 28, 22. And then we'll move on.
Trying to hold back. Trying to get the best special linkups.
So this is Proverbs 28, 27. Proverbs 28, 27, it says, he that giveth unto the poor shall not lack, but he that hideth his eyes shall have many a curse. Damn. Right? Many a curse. Man, think about that. Right? So that almost sets a guilt. You somewhere. That's like this morning when I was coming to the school, there was a guy on the corner, like coming down Roosevelt. Is always somebody that's got the signs up and that's begging. But it was raining and I couldn't see. I was like, damn, is that an Israelite? What was that? I can't see. Started trying to get some things out to give him. Looking. Damn, the light don't catch it. Yeah. Right? So I didn't feel bad. I'm like, oh, this guy's a straight heathen. Now some might say, Samat, but how do you know? See, that's what you brothers, man. You brothers is always on color, right? How do you know that man was Israelite or Edomite? How do you know, brother? Right? Exactly. Judge was that St. John was at 724, right? Don't judge according to appearance, right? So this is where it goes into time, inquisition, discernment, right? Now, if I walked up on him, right, then I can now try to read the spirit, right? Sometimes we make prejudgments. This guy's definitely an Edomite, man, right? And he comes up to me, and something's telling me, I'm just find out. And you're like, yo, what you out here for? What happened to you? Right? You going in like, he's like, where you from? Like the same thing we do. Tell me where you from. Yeah, you know, your pops. Right? And then I'm finding out, and they're like, all right, well, too bad, brother. Too bad, sir. All right, I ain't got nothing for you. And then I go on. But if it comes out that, there is like a gray area where I might think that this guy could be, because we've had circumstances like that where, you're talking with individuals and they're saying one thing, but you're looking at their spirit and you're looking at certain things, and I'm like, and you deal with them. Now, whether or not, there's no sin in helping out a heathen. There's no sin in giving them a crumb, right? Yahushua gave a crumb, right? So there's no sin in giving a crumb. That's just the judgment. I think when we used to do the Purim, and we used to have, when we was in Jersey, we used to go and do giving out food at the homeless shelters, right? We get all the food and we package it up, get sandwiches, this, that, whatever it may be, take it out. We're going to take it to the shelter. Guess what? At the shelter, it ain't all Israelites in there. It ain't all Negroes in there. You're going to have some heathens in there. Guess what? We're going to feed the heathens too, right? To make the ministry not be blamed. Imagine we went in there and said, here's a bag, here's a bag, here's a bag. You got an Edomite woman with a daughter, and she comes up. Nah, go ahead. They're like, what? The organization, everybody can be like, hold on, you guys can never come here again, right? So sometimes you may have to do that, right? There's nothing wrong with it if that's your desire, your choice to go and do it.
Right. I mean, food is something that is necessary for. It doesn't matter who you are, even if you're a heathen or you Israelite, right? Food, dog eats. Animals eat, right? Mm-hmm. It is a necessity for human beings to survive for the body. So it's the least you can give somebody food, right? Regardless of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Then Esau will take food and make it weaponize it, right? And keep people in situation where they can have for even things that supposed to sustain the body.
Yep.
But in the Most High's realm, even the poor, the clean, don't live for the poor.
Yeah, you could write based on what you're talking about. Write down Ecclesiasticus, chapter 34. Ecclesiasticus, chapter 34. And 21. It said, the bread of the needy is their life. He that defraudeth him thereof is a man of blood. The bread of the needy is their life, and he that defraudeth him thereof is a man of blood. You're like a murderer. Dang. Right? So again, when you read or we hear these precepts, it's to now formulate a conscience in us, right? It's to now start to condition our conscience on how we deal with one another, especially right now we're reading in context, those are the poor. All right. I got this a minute. Let's go back. Ecclesiastes chapter 4, and I think I read down to 4. I'm going to keep going with verse 5. And as we always say, for those who are listening and watching, the discussions that we have in here, if you have thoughts, questions, make sure you write them down. And then we can bring it up in the Tuesday or Friday class. Elder sometimes posts his precepts on the chat that may go in line with what we're reading. That's Tawab too. If you say, "Oh, I got this precept," and we're not reading it, you can post it there for others to also catch and write down along with it. But also make sure we always write down precepts, because I think we're about to speed it up a little bit. All right, so we had Ecclesiastes chapter 4, and we have verse 5 now. Turn not away thine eye from the needy, and give him none occasion to curse thee. But if he curse thee in the bitterness of his soul, his prayer shall be heard of him that made him. Right? So again, this honor or alms is based on our action. So if you don't extend when you have need to extend, that poor man can bring that before the Most High, and that could be, like I said earlier, many a curse, right? That will happen to you.
And once again, this is going to the poor that are righteous, keeping the commandments, because we know we had this belligerent attitude. You can get some time to help out homeless in the world, where you don't give them what they need. You give what they need as opposed to what they want, and then they get mad at you and curse you. It's like, oh, you got to chill with that. That's not the same.
Right. That's where you write. You can go in Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verses 1 down to like 6 or 7, I think. That goes into how do you deal with individuals as far as for how you distribute or give certain things to godly men versus wicked men, right? And then the things that you even give, like somebody, I remember the brother asked me for some money, and I asked him, what do you need? I thought it was for food. He said, "No, I need to get a cigarette." Nah, I can't give you the money. And he cursed me out in the store. Right? I was like, "Nah, I'm not doing that." He's like, "Come on, brother, you was going to give it to me when I thought I was going to get some food." I was like, I would have got you the food. It's like, but I said, and then I started going into why he shouldn't smoke. He's like, "Yeah, you're right, but that's not going to happen today. Tomorrow I'll do that, but not today." I was like, "Nah, brother, I can't." Right?
And then he took away wisdom, quote unquote wisdom, which is should have told what I wanted.
Right. Next time I ain't going to tell him what I wanted for. I'm going to keep that quiet and then go do it. And because of that, that's why when it's in our means, somebody say, "I need some food." Okay, I will get the food. And they say, "Nah," then you know they had other alternatives.
That's why it's not okay to be.
Right. Worldly lessons.
Verse 6, it said, "For if he curse thee in the bitterness of his soul, his prayer shall be heard of him that made him. Get thyself the love of the congregation, and bow thy head to a great man." Right? So getting yourself the love of the congregation means to do charitable and profitable things amongst the nation. Right? When you are, as they say, a public servant in the traditional sense, when you're like Yahushua, you are now going out and making sure brothers are spiritually fed, physically fed, clothed, all those things. Guess what? You begin to get the love of the congregation. When you fight for the causes of the people, you get the love of the congregation, right? On a carnal level, you see that there's certain people, certain celebrities that can go anywhere with no bodyguards, no protection. Why? Because they got the love of the people, right? They champion the cause. They don't exploit them. And you have others who can't do that because they was all about money and everything else. And they're in their minds, they're protecting what? Their investment. So if somebody come up on me, nah, they're trying to rob me, they're trying to take this, they're trying to take, so I'm gonna have 15 bodyguards. I'm gonna have all this around me. No, a person who is comfortable with his people, he's gonna always be or get the love of the congregation. One person who on a carnal level epitomized that was people like Muhammad Ali, right? Muhammad Ali, even on a carnal if I made that right, even like I'm saying that same vein, Mike Tyson, right? You have some people that just, people just like, yo, he's one of us, right? He not bending, he not trying to exploit us, he not trying to do this. Now, is everything that these guys was advocating for on the up and no, but they got the love of the congregation. Now, on a spiritual righteous level, right? When you are doing this, if you are exercising what we just read about, as far as for how you deal with your parents, how you deal with the poor, how you deal with your brother, right? Doing these things, you will get the love of the congregation, right? If you have resources and means and you looking to build up and do certain things within your community, you're going to get the love of the congregation. But when you withholding, you hold back, you're not sharing knowledge, you're not sharing certain things, and people find out about it, they're going to be like, this guy, man, he's all about himself. He's selfish, right? He really don't care about us like that. He don't even take the time to even talk to us, right? Imagine the poor brother who's out there on the street. He's out there begging for money. A lot of times they are alienated from the world. People don't want to come around them. And it's a judgment of the Most High. People don't want to come around them. They may not be washing, so they smell. And they're thrown out of places, right? Everything else. People don't want to talk to them. They make fun of them. They do all kinds of things. And these people are put there or put in these situations like we just read in Deuteronomy, the 15th chapter, to see how the rest of us going to act. Right? Y'all going to be like them. Right? Y'all not even going to talk to the brother. Right? Y'all not even going to have a conversation. And sometimes they get so adverse to the world because they've been mistreated so much that it's hard for them even to communicate with somebody. I've had that happen where it's like, nah, brother, I'm not going to do nothing to you. You feel like, dang, man, they may feel a way because they've been getting it from everybody else. Nah, I just want to talk to you, brother. You need anything? You need some clothes? You need some food? I'm here to help, brother. No problem. I understand the distance. What's going on? Like, you gotta like try to be comfortable with them because I know they've been alienated. But it's us now that this test is put upon us. They're going through what they're going through. The Most High said the poor are going to always be there. But how you going to deal with it? Right? And if you turn a blind eye, many a curse, as we just read. So it says, and bow thine head to a great man, as we just read in chapters Ecclesiasticus chapter 6, as far as for standing in the multitude of the elders so that you can become wise, you learning from them, you building yourself up, right? Those who are now righteous, right? When it talks about great man, ain't talking about like a Floyd Mayweather, because he got a lot of money, he's undefeated, right? Now it's talking about a righteous man of the Most High, right? Stand or be attentive unto him. It says, let it not grieve thee to bow down thine ear to the poor and give him a friendly answer with meekness. Kind of just goes to what I just said, right? Sometimes you got to be patient and want to talk, have a conversation with him, right? You may not even have no money. You walking down the street and you're like, how you doing, brother? Everything all right with you? What's your peace, right? You know, I remember one time me and the brother back in the day was in an old church. We was downtown North and we saw a sister. And she was poor. We was giving her some money, and then we just had a conversation. Like, sis, like, what's going on? What happened? She said, my husband died. And it's never left me because sometimes you formulate in your mind a certain perspective about people who are in those conditions. And she's like, yeah, my husband died, and I never overcame it. Depression set in. I used to work in that building right there on the 15th floor. I had a good job, just down the third, but I lost my mind. And we're talking like, but that, and I was odd. I said, but you're so articulate. And then when I thought about it, I was like, why would she not have to be articulate? Because it's again our own impression of what we project on them and thinking that they're a certain way. And no, she had a nice conversation, but it was a good conversation. And then we started to give her advice on how to come out of that depression. Started to give her things that she could walk with to try to now get herself out, because she was still in that space. She says, I never came out of it. He was my everything. He was my rock. The scriptures tell you about that too when you read in the Ecclesiasticus. So like this says here, let it not grieve thee to bow down thine ear to the poor and give him a friendly answer with meekness. So sometimes it ain't about money. It ain't all about food. It's just about time and an ear.
It's like when you see a poor man, like the scripture says, everything happened for good to those that love the Most High. Mm-hmm. To us, we see the misfortune of that person. But we don't understand that the Most High, that's nothing the Most High. He can turn that person to a clean person.
Right. So that's First Samuel.
Right. And it's a lesson to whoever come across that person. Like you putting pudding.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lesson for us that's in the scriptures to look at things differently for how the world look at things.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to reference when you read First Timothy 6 and 17, where it says willing to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Because I always think of this example, especially when 2008 happened. They were going in on what's the guy, Richard Fole, Lehman Brothers. They're going to how they called him the gorilla. They said he had like a private elevator only he could use. Like, think about the rapport he had with his people where he worked at. So it's like, you'll see that still, the company still kind of had that thing where it's like people are afraid to even talk to the head of the company, in certain settings.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's like, it's funny how you see the heathen kind of not follow these practices, or do the opposite, and what comes of it.
Okay. Verse 9, deliver him that suffereth wrong from the hand of the oppressor, and be not faint-hearted when thou sittest in judgment. Right? So again, we always, read throughout the scriptures that we're supposed to advocate for those who are powerless, so to speak, where, certain injustices are done. Someone has to be an advocate, right? Someone has to be the defense attorney, right? For the people, right? That's what we do. And most times people don't realize it when we're out there speaking on behalf, teaching from the scriptures, we're speaking on behalf of them, right? All the atrocities that happen to us, right? The Most High has a judgment. You're not going to go and petition at the courthouse, right? We tried that. You're not going down to DC to say, give me my reparations. It should be a slap in the face where you see everybody else get reparations except for you. And none of them suffered as worse than you, but everybody else get reparation, right? So your reparation, it should be obvious, ain't going to come from man, right? It's going to come from the Most High bringing the kingdom to you, right? And then judgment to them. So we have to try to go, what is that? Ezekiel 9:4, right? We got to put that mark in those, I'm paraphrasing, that cry and that sigh for the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. So they crying out, what's going on, man? Why are they doing this? We got to go out there and be the advocates, right? The counselors, the protectors, the nurturers, right? All of these different types of professions they currently have, we spiritually become that. Doctors, lawyers, right? All of that. Reading on. Verse 10, be as a father unto the fatherless, and instead of an husband unto their mother, so shalt thou be as the son of the Most High, and he shall love thee more than thy mother doth. Right? So we now have to fulfill a role. James chapter 1. We have to fulfill that role spiritually and not carnally. Right? James chapter 1 and verse 27, where it says, pure religion and undefiled before the power and the Father is this, to visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction, and to keep himself unspotted from the world. Right? So you're supposed to visit the fatherless and widows. That's what it just said here. Right? Be as a father unto the fatherless, and instead of an husband unto their mother. She's a widow. She don't have a man no more. But now we're supposed to have or execute righteousness, good principles. When it's talking about religion here, it's talking about the principles, laws, statutes that come from the law. The examples that set forth by the prophets, by righteous men and women. That's what that is. It says that you're supposed to visit them in their time of need, and to keep himself unspotted from the world. Here you go. I'm going to go in there like how these carnal church preachers, pastors do. They're going to go in their house. Let me sit down and talk with you, Sister Sheila. And he's sitting there talking, and he's saying smooth words. But then what happens? He's trying to be a husband to her. He's trying to lay with her, right? That's the intent. Then what happens? Scandal breaks out in the church. He over there sleeping with such and such. Yeah, he's sleeping with shit. He ain't sleeping with just Deborah too. That what? And then all hell breaks loose in the church because he couldn't control himself. Now he's spotted in the world because there's a stain on his name. Right? He's too loose. Right? You gotta do this and be blameless. And it happens a lot, right? It happens a lot.
TV shows, the dramas.
Yeah.
They always say the dramas always like set up like this. Like, was it Nollywood dramas? They always have like some pastor that's creepy. You know, we got like those books in that section of the bookstore, all those steamy novels.
Mm-hmm.
Like Carl Weber, right? Like they always have those stories like fornication in the pulpit, or something that kind of topic. It's all based on actual events.
It's funny as you say that. There's a show that I check out called The Chi. I don't know what cable network it's on, but when I got time, I'll binge and I check it out. And then in the series, there's a guy who's a preacher, and he does a sermon about lust, about marriage, about being able to control your urges and your desires, and this, that, and the third. And he says like a beautiful sermon, right? Holding yourself, like to get like how there's some of the things that we talk about before you go lay down with somebody, get to know them first. You don't know what's going on, type spirits they dealing with, all that. And then the following scene, you see the doggone same pastor with an Edomite woman in the back, and he's all about the, he's following her, and then somebody walk in. He's like, "Oh, yo, what you doing? You just can't walk up in there." And he's like, "Yo, pastor, you gotta be more careful. You can't be doing this. You just went and said," and that's a reflection, like you said, art imitates life. That's what happens. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Yeah. So
too, like some folks a little older on the live stream, like Mary and Barry, the BIT set me up. That was like a famous line. We got quote unquote busted. A lot of our leaders in like the political arena too got busted on certain things. It'll be a similar thing where it's like, he had love for the people, but then his personal life was a little spotty.
Right.
You see it, like I said, not just in the religious side of things, but in business and politics, you see it too.
But the interesting thing about this verse 10, and as we joke about it, based on what we see in society and twos, if it wasn't true, it wouldn't be in it, right? So what we're talking about that happens is indicative of not putting on this moral code, right? So you now have to frame your mind. You going in, and it's spirits and it's temptations that could come on you, because now you may say, scriptures talk about that, a woman is relieved of her duty to her husband after the husband died. So now I'm going in there, ain't nothing wrong. Hey man, she ain't got no husband. What's wrong with that? So now all of these temptations start coming on you when you're going in there to have counsel, or you're going to do certain things with a sister, right? And her son is there or her daughter's there, and now they're fatherless, and now they need guidance, they need help, they need a figure in there. So now we're supposed to be that for so many people, right? Not just, it's really supposed to be for the congregation that we now present this type of figure. But you can't be doing it like the world and saying, "Hey, I'm going to go in and counsel with her and give her guidance." But in the back of my mind,
Counsel for himself.
Counsel for himself, right? Verse 11. Wisdom exalteth her children, and layeth hold on them that seek her. He that loveth her loveth life, and they that seek to her early shall be filled with joy, right? Which is an exemplification of us when we came in, right? When you came in, you was calling a brother, you was coming to class, you had so many questions because you was trying to lay hold on wisdom and now enter into life, right? Because the world is full of death. But coming into these chambers is full of life or immortality. Verse 12. It's a lot. Verse 13. He that holdeth her fast shall inherit glory, and whithersoever she entereth, the Lord will bless. They that serve her shall minister to the Holy One, and them that love her, the Lord doth love, right? So when you minister, you put that time in with wisdom, right? Then the Most High is going to deal with you on a certain level, right? On a high level. Whoso giveth ear unto her shall judge the nations, and he that attendeth unto her shall dwell securely. So you can't get the kingdom and thinking that you're going to get, everybody wants the kingdom, what we got next, this, that, and the third, but you're not going to judge in righteousness with wisdom, right? This leads to that. That's going to get us to what we desire in Revelations chapter 2 and verse 25, where it says, and he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power over the nations. Through what? Wisdom. You got to exercise and overcome through wisdom right now. Verse 16, back in Ecclesiasticus. If a man commit himself unto her, he shall inherit her, and his generation shall hold her in possession, right? So if you take hold of her, who's going in this is a twofold precept here. Because it says, if a man commit himself unto her, he shall inherit her, and his generations shall hold her in possession. Spirit of the prophets subject to the prophets. Meaning you dealing with wisdom on a high level now, you dealing with wisdom on a high level then, dealing throughout the generations, right? So you can't forsake her. You can't be high-minded and thinking, well, I got all the knowledge, so I ain't got to do the work. No, you're going to hold her securely. Verse 17, for at the first you will walk with him by crooked ways and bring fear and dread upon him and torment him with her discipline until she may trust his soul and try him by her laws, right? So now there comes a trial. Go to 1 Peter chapter 4. 1 Peter chapter 4. So wisdom is going to see if this person has my best interest. Just like how you got to prove a friend, you got to even prove someone who you want to make your mate. Wisdom is going to prove that in you as well. 1 Peter chapter 4 and verse 12. 1 Peter 4 and 12. Beloved, think it not strange concerning the fiery trial which is to try you or to prove you, as though some strange thing happened unto you, right? So that's what it's talking about here. At the first, you will walk with him by crooked ways and bring fear and dread upon him and torment him with her discipline. That's the fiery trial, right? That you're going to go through. Wisdom is trying to prove you through her laws. All right, go back.
Ecclesiastes chapter 1.
Ecclesiastes chapter 1.
That's 2 verses.
Exactly. Even you said the last two, I was going to go in the Wisdom of Solomon, but I'll get there in a minute. You said Ecclesiastes?
Yes.
Okay. I just said a cuss.
Yes, so Ecclesiastes.
Mm-hmm.
Can't find it.
Borrow.
17 and 18.
Trying to read that.
Ecclesiastes 1:17, it reads, and I gave my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceive that this also is vexation of spirit. For much wisdom is much grief, either increase of knowledge, increase of sorrow.
Done. Done. So that was Ecclesiastes chapter 1 in the Bible, not in the Apocrypha, chapter 1, verse 17 to 18. So now we're back to Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and 18. It says, after she's proven you, based on 17, and tried you, verse 18, then will she return the straight way unto him and comfort him and show him her secrets, right? So now that's what happens after you've been proven. You can write down chapter 14 of the same book, Sirach.
This goes with 18, yeah.
This goes with 18, because it's speaking about that wisdom is going to now divulge the secrets unto this individual because he's proven himself, right? It's chapter 14 and verse 20. It says, blessed is the man that doth meditate good things in wisdom, and that reasoneth of holy things by his understanding. He that considereth her ways in his heart shall also have understanding in her secrets, right? So when you meditate, you consider, you go through all the things, then after a while, wisdom trusts you and says, all right, I'm going to get you in. That's why when you read it in the scriptures, it's like a relationship between man and wisdom, wisdom being in the feminine gender. So now it's the same thing at times where you're dealing with a woman, like we just said, you got to prove a man should prove a woman, right? On the same time, that woman is proving the man. And sometimes you got your guard up. You got what they call a representative, right? You're not divulging everything. You want to see if this person is trustworthy. So I want to know if this person I can now open my heart to and let him know or let her know all things about me. So you got to prove them first. And then once you find out that this person is sincere on the up and up, then you can open up all the secrets and chambers. On the spiritual level, on a high level, that's what wisdom does. Wisdom want to know, yeah, this guy, let me see how he deal with Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving. He's like, nah, it's food, that's nothing, And then he's like, what the heck is this brother doing? What is he talking about? Nah, I don't know, because the way he's putting out my information, he bastardizing it. Nah, I'm not giving him no more information because he becoming a little bit too carnal. Far more than what I thought he was. So I gotta pull back. That's what it tells you in Wisdom of Solomon, the first chapter, on how wisdom pulls back when you become wicked. That's Wisdom of Solomon 1 and 3 and 4. Write it down. Wisdom of Solomon 1, 3, and 4.
Oh, and Deuteronomy 29:29.
Deuteronomy 29:29. You have it?
Yeah.
What does it say real quick?
The secret things belong unto Yahweh our God, but those things which are revealed belong to us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law.
Mm-hmm. So now, reading what I said, verse 19. But if he go wrong, she will forsake him and give him over to his own ruin. Just like I quoted Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 1, verses 3 and 4. Forward thoughts, a wicked heart, wisdom going to flee, right? Verse 20. Observe the opportunity and beware of evil, and be not ashamed when it concerneth thy soul, right? So certain things that pertains to you and your spirit, you have to make sure that you pay attention to any and all things. Write down Ecclesiasticus chapter 37 and 27. Ecclesiasticus 37:27, where it says, my son, prove thy soul in thy life and see what is evil for it, and give not that unto it. For all things are not profitable for all men, neither have every soul pleasure in everything, right? So when it pertains to your soul, don't be careless with it, man, right? You know what's good for you, right? If I know, like I usually bring out I always use the example, if I know I have a alcohol problem, a drinking problem, and I know it, brothers have told me, I've accepted it, then I'm not going to put myself in positions where I'm going to fall. I'll prove to myself that's not good for me. I might be abstinent from alcohol, right? The only time I'm going to drink might be on the Passover. Might be. I could still drink grape juice because I know the spirit that comes with it, right? Because we know alcohol, they call it what? Spirits. Right? They got the liquor store down the street is called Wine and Spirits. Because when you consume alcohol and you overconsume, what happens? Spirits come on you. Right? A variety of different spirits. Right? You feel like man, I can withstand anything. Now I know more knowledge than anybody. I'm gonna go out there and say, you got brothers that come, not even brothers and heathen that come up to the camp and they drunk as I don't know what, but they think they know every damn thing. Right? The spirits come on you. Same thing happened. Done. So prove what's good for you in all things, right? Now, going back, Ecclesiastes chapter 4 and verse 21. It says, there is a shame that bringeth sin, and there is a shame which is glory and grace, right? So you got shame using the same verse in different contexts. You can write down Exodus chapter 25. Exodus 25. It's like Exodus 32:25. I'm looking at 25. 32. So like Exodus chapter 32. And I'm going to start at 24. Exodus 32:24, it says, and I said unto them, whosoever hath any gold, let them break it off. So they gave it to me. Then I cast it into the fire, and there came out this calf. For this is now Aaron, like making the account of what happened while Moses was on the mount, getting the law from the Most High, right? Most High told Moses, get you down to those men. Get down there, man. These guys are going to hell off. And Moses comes down. What the heck is going on? Now, Aaron, his brother, is giving account. Verse 25. And when Moses saw that the people were naked, for Aaron had made them naked unto their shame among their enemies, right? Because of what? Sin, right? They were now naked, meaning there's nothing that Israel could have said, because this is their power. And they went and made a false god after what the Most High had done for them. So now they were embarrassed. It's an embarrassment for what they did, right? So that type of shame comes from sin. Go to Jeremiah chapter 3.
You see, even the shame in Aaron and it being questioned.
Yeah, imagine if you was Aaron and then you come in, and the way he even said it is like, yeah, I told him to give me the gold, and I put it in the fire, and they came with this cat. It's like,
Can't make it so.
yeah, exactly. Jeremiah chapter 3 and verse 25. So Jeremiah 3 and 25, it says, we lie down in our shame, and our confusion covereth us. For we have sinned against the Lord our power, we and our fathers, from our youth even unto this day, and have not obeyed the voice of the Lord our power, right? So that is the first part of the shame, when it says, but there's a shame that bringeth sin, right? When you don't listen to the Lord, when you don't follow the Most High, right? But there's another type shame that bringeth glory, right? Go to the book of Acts. Acts chapter 5. Acts chapter 5 and verse, I'm going to start at 40. Acts 5 and 40. It says, and to him they agreed, and when they called the apostles and beaten them, they commanded that they should not speak in the name of Yahushua, and let them go. Verse 41. And they departed from the presence of the council, rejoicing that they were counted worthy to suffer shame for his name. And daily in the temple and in every house they ceased not to teach and preach Yahushua HaMashiach, right? So now you have it where this type of shame, when you stand up for the truth, right? You are made ashamed in front of everybody, beaten and mocked and spit and all these different things. That shame brings unto glory, because we know that the Most High is going to reward us for the works that we put in. 1 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 1. 1 Thessalonians 2 and 1, it says, for yourselves, brethren, know our entrance in unto you, that it was not in vain. But even after that we had suffered before and were shamefully entreated, as ye know, at Philippi we were bold in our power to speak unto you the gospel of power with much contention, right? So when the apostles went out, Yahushua, they had to suffer shame for the word of the Most High, right? What is that going to lead to? Glory. That's going to lead to the reward, because this is the circumstances that come with teaching Yahushua Mashiach, right? So you got the two. Which one you want to do, sin, or you want to do righteous, keeping the law, right? Shame going to come on either one, right? There's one on this side, one on that side. This one comes with a great reward. This one comes with a great punishment, right? Like it tells you in Daniel's, some going to be raised to everlasting life, others going to be raised to everlasting contempt, right? So it's an option. As they say, it's a choice you have. All right, so let's go back. Ecclesiasticus chapter 4 and verse 22. Down the stretch. Accept no person against thy soul, and let not the reverence of any man cause thee to fall. Right. So kind of goes into what we just read early. As far as for prove 37, proving what's good for you and what's evil for it. Right. So when it says accept no person against thy soul, meaning anybody who now is doing something contrary to the way you walk, you can't allow that individual to now become a part of your walk, right? You're unequally yoked, right? They're against your soul. They're going to do things contrary to what you do. That's going to be a problem. It's going to be frustration. It's going to be vexation of spirit, right? So you can't accept no person that's going to be against yours. And let not the reverence of any cause thee to fall. Just because someone is deemed to be, a public figure, right? They're respected at your job. They're respected in your neighborhood, right? And you want to gain some type of notoriety or admiration. You now go and reverence this guy because you want that same type thing, right? We talk about the love of the congregation. I got to go reverence this guy, but he wicked. This guy ain't doing nothing for them. He not righteous, but I got to curtsy to him. No, right? Don't let the reverence of anybody cause you to stumble and fall.
And it's funny because there's so many situations in the world by you standing up to the person that has the worldly glory, you always seem to get what the other people sought anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got the undivided attention. No one tells me what I need. Everyone tells me what I want to hear, never what they need, what I need to hear. You did that. I was too close to me, and like those people are jealous even that much more.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, they tell this person the truth, and now that they elevated above me, they took my spot.
Mm-hmm.
Even when the righteous will work out for even in this wicked world.
What I leave off? Verse 23. It says, and refrain not to speak when there is occasion to do good, and hide not thy wisdom in her beauty. Right. So when there is opportunity for you to say something, right? 1 Peter 3 and 15. 1 Peter 3:15, where it says, but sanctify the Yahweh power in your hearts, and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asks you a reason of the hope that is in you with meekness and fear. So you always got to be ready for some type of answer, right? Especially when it's needful for you to say something. Colossians 4 and 6. Colossians 4 and 6.
These are the verses we use for the swordsman's code.
Mm-hmm. Colossians 4, I'm sorry, 5. Colossians 4 and 5. Walk in wisdom toward them that are without, redeeming the time, right? So you got to be cautious, wise when you're out there in the world, right? Well, I'm going to say out there in the world, when you're in the world, because you could be in a building. It's like to say you got to be outside somewhere. No, wherever you are, you got to walk in wisdom. Let your speech be always with grace, seasoned with salt, that you may know how you ought to answer every man, which means that you have to know how righteously how to divide the word, right? Know when to use certain precepts and know when not to, right? Because sometimes it might be meat for a person when they might be thinking it's milk. Right? You got to use a bit of grace with certain situations where you may not need to come down like you're trying to condemn someone. You might now show some mercy, the same way the Most High Yahweh shall show mercy and grace on us when we're trying to now come before them. All right, let's go back. Ecclesiasticus chapter 4 and verse 24. For by speech wisdom shall be known, and learning by the word of the tongue. And no wise speak against the truth, but be abashed of the error of thine ignorance, right? So you don't want to blaspheme against the truth. Yahweh Shah talks about that in the gospel, forget the precept, where he says you can blaspheme the Son of Man, but don't blaspheme the Holy Spirit, right? You can blaspheme the Son of Man. Speak about he's a wine bibber. It's a wine bibber. Look at that. Right, trying to slander his name, but don't do it against the truth, right? Huh?
Ananias and Sapphira, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sold the field for how much? Yeah, for that much. People came for that. If I be a for you now.
Exactly.
Woo! Hey.
It says,
Cooked. I'll say the kids think they got cooked.
Mm-hmm. It says, be not ashamed to confess thy sins and force not the course of the river. So be not ashamed to confess thy sins, your faults, your transgressions, like say James 5:16, when he says confess your faults or your transgressions one to another, right? So you have to be willing and humble to do that, right? You can't be prideful. Say I want to keep it concealed. I don't want to come off as I always mess up. I always no. You got to be sincere in doing it. And it says, and force not the course of the river. Just like how we was talking about early in the previous chapter. Sometimes you can't force the spirit. You can't want things to go a certain way that it's not meant to be, right? The river goes like this and like this. You want it to go like that, right? And you would look at it, it's really speaking about the spirit, because the river is like in connotation to water. Yahweh likened it, and what is it, James, St. John 7:38. He that believeth on me, as the scripture have said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water, speaking about the Holy Ghost or the Holy Spirit. So you can't force the spirit. You can't force it to happen upon your timeline, when you want it, how you want it. Now, going like this, it's going to go like that. Right? You got to flow with it. You got to flow with the spirit. Verse 27, make not thyself an underling to a foolish man, neither accept the person of the mighty, right? You can't make yourself an underling to someone who don't have wisdom, someone who's a mighty person, meaning that someone who has control over certain situations and circumstances. Doesn't have to be somebody who's a strength, could be, right? But also someone who has control over certain things. You don't want to fall victim under them, right? Because then they control the outcomes of certain things, right? They can overpower you. Go to Ecclesiasticus chapter 12. And verse 12. I'm going to start at 10. 12 and 10. It says, never trust thine enemy, but like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. Though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him. And thou shalt be unto him as if thou hast wiped a looking glass. And thou shalt know that his rust have not been altogether wiped away. Set him not by thee, lest when he hath overthrown thee, he stand in thy place. He stand up in thy place. Neither let him sit at thy right hand, lest he seek to take thy seat, and thou at the last remember my words and be pricked therewith, right? So you have to be careful of certain men, right? The enemy we know is Esau, right? Esau is the ultimate enemy based on what we read. He is full of wickedness. But in Proverbs 12:26, it says, the righteous is more excellent than his neighbor, but the way of the wicked seduceth them. So we have even brothers, sisters within our own nation who take upon themselves the same characteristics. So we have to be mindful even of them, right? Christ told us that our foes will be those of our own household, our enemies, right? They're not following this truth. So they're going to have a different perspective on how they want to walk or how they want to deal with you, right? So you got to be careful of who you surround yourself with, who you trust, who you give certain control and power over certain things with, so that they don't overpower you thereby. So back in Ecclesiasticus chapter 4, and we have verse 28 now. Down the home stretch, it says, strive for the truth unto death, and Yahweh shall fight for thee, right? Beautiful precept, used a lot. It's the kind of staple, something that should be a moniker, that when you're put to the test, that you stand, as they say in the world, you stand on business. right? You stand on business, meaning you strive until it's your last breath, right? I think it was a couple of, I don't know if it was in the classes or the Sabbath service, but when you read in the letters of Paul, you read what he admonishes the other disciples and apostles, that they're sent out as if it's unto death, meaning men put their lives and livelihoods on the line to go preach Yahushua, right? Just to preach Yahushua. When Paul went out, he was just preaching Yahushua and the truth. And he was beat, whipped, shipwrecked, put to death, came back. He went through a whole bunch just for, he wasn't trying to rob. He ain't going to war. He ain't trying to steal, listen. Nah, he just preaching. And that's what happened. So now it's the same context for us. Like, we got to try to make sure that we stand and advocate for the truth, right? Don't let, because they now got a gun in your face or they try to take something away and they're trying to force you like they did the apostles. You can't teach that no more. I don't want to see you ever speaking out of that Bible like that. What do you call it? Yahweh? I don't even want to hear that name come out your mouth no more. Right? If you do, you be down in El Salvador. Right? So that happens. Right? It happened to them back then. Don't you? You can't think that some organization ain't looking to do that to brothers today. Right?
So the key is to stand on the Father's business.
Stand on the Father's business. Go on. Stand on the Father's business. Beautiful. All right, verse 29. It says, "Be not hasty in thy tongue, and in thy deed slack and remiss." Right? Be not hasty in thy tongue. You read that in chapter 11, verse 7 and 8. Where it says, "Blame not before thou hast examined the truth. Understand first and then rebuke." Right. So, and then answer not before thou hast heard the cause, neither interrupt men in the midst of their talk. So,
James 1:19.
same thing, James 1:19. I'm reading verse 9 here in Ecclesiasticus 11:9, where it says, "Strive not in the matter that concerneth thee not." It's the same thing when we was reading in verse 23, where it says, "Be not curious in unnecessary matters." Good precept for that, right? 11:9 with 3 and 23. That's what happens when, some brothers are like, "Yo, you got to read 4 days, 5 chapters, read 1 chapter." When you're reading, and you continue reading, you read with understanding, man, precepts just come out, just pop out like, "Oh, snap, that goes with that precept." Link it up, start linking up, and then chambers just start opening up. Right?
Even when you did it before, like, I was going through it during the week, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Now it came to me.
Yeah, just now. So I'm like, "Oh, look at this. This goes with that."
Before the priest made a comment, just a comment, like, "Oh, get this."
Yeah. Done. So now we're back in verse 30. "Be not as a lion in thine house, nor frantic among thy servants." So now, as it pertains to your household, you don't want to be as a roaring lion. You don't want to be, I was just say ruling, treachery and wickedness, and you're just demanding, calling out, command, "Go over there, woman, sit your bond down, boy." Like you like a drill sergeant in a household, right? You just no compassion, right? No comfortable, like, what does it say in Jeremiah? Is it Jeremiah? "Speak ye comfortably to Jerusalem," right? These are like, comfortable words. Was it 422? I can't remember. But
41.
4 and 1,
40.
41. But yeah, that's how you can't rule your household, with this.
Yeah. Isaiah 41.
Isaiah 41.
1, 2.
Right? You can't rule your house like a lion, like with fear, right? You walk in the room, it's how you walk in the room, everybody stand up. You want pins and needles, you on edge. Nah, your household can't be run like that, right? So you can't even in business, because it talks about, "And in thy and nor frantic among thy servants," right? So some people who you now have under you all over the place. Like, is it this, is that? No, I told you go ahead. Hey, over here. You just told me go ahead. We got to say that. Get over here. all over the place, man. No compassion in anything, right? So you got to do things in proper order, right? Things have to be run a certain way. And through wisdom, you'll know how to nurture and run your household. You'll know how to nurture and run your businesses. You'll know how to nurture and run relationships. All of that comes from some of the basic things, right? Right now, these past 2 chapters, one of the 2 principal things we dealt with is your parents and the poor, right? There was a saying when it pertains to how you judge a nation. They say, show me how they deal with their poor, or you show me the poor people, I'll show you what type of people they are, right? Just on how they deal with the poor. I know right off the bat what type of government they're running, what type of situation they got going on, just how they deal with that. So now when you have that in a carnal sense and you have precepts like this, where the Most High now shows you the value of how you deal with just your parents. It's like the wax on, wax off theory. Just go through the motions and deal with them in a good manner, right? And trust me, what is going to come out of it? Oh man, the fruits that you're going to yield is going to be beautiful. Then you get to the poor. Trust me, try it out. Go out there. Go talk to the poor. Go do some alms. It ain't got to be about always money, but if you got money, give them some money. Give them some food. And righteousness, right? In righteousness, not just haphazardly. And then you'll see the yields that come out of that, or the fruits that come out of that. And then from thence, man, everything else just starts opening up, right? We're in the business of service, right? We are civil servants, public servants. We are here to serve. Yahweh Shai came to serve, to minister. He said, I ain't come to be ministered unto. Y'all ain't coming to teach me. I'm coming to show y'all something, man. Right? And now y'all got to carry that on and minister one to another. So again, be not as a lion in thy house, nor frantic among thy servants. Let not thine hand be stretched out to receive, and shut when thou shouldest repay. Right? And you know, that's self-explanatory, but yeah, some people they do that too, right? Give me. I need. But when it's time to repay, you be slack to give it back, right? They got to ask you. They got to come. Yo, you got, huh? Hold on. I'll get back with you. You can't be that way, right? So, again, all 62 of these precepts that we just went through in 3 and 4 pertains to moral conduct. Right? That each and every one of these that we have to try to apply. Some's grouped together, like we said, parents, honor your parents in righteousness, how to deal with the poor. The scripture says we should not, I think it said we shouldn't rest judgment on the poor. I forget how it's worded, where even when you're dealing with the poor, you can't show favor unto the poor. If they did something that's wrong, they got to be called out. Be like, come on, brother. Come on. He ain't got nothing. Let him go. Let him go. No, I have to correct him. I have to admonish him and let him know that, listen, that was wrong. If it was a brother who was rich or a brother who didn't have his money, whatever, it don't matter, right? We have to make sure that we have an equal balance amongst all, but exercise what the Most High is asking us for those in a particular class. You got a precept?
Just for that last thing. Sorry.
Go ahead.
This is in Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 6, 30 and 31. Just put that next comment.
Proverbs 6, 30 and 31.
Where it reads, men do not despise the thief if he steals to satisfy his soul when he is hungry. But if he be found, he shall restore sevenfold. He shall get all the substance of his house. That's what we said, that balance.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And also, as we were talking about the fruit of the Spirit, so now once the fruit becomes, it grows, and consider this chapters as fertilizers to keep maintaining the fruits that they can develop.
Yep, exactly. Over time, you got to nurture it. You got to tend to it. You got to maintain it, right? You got to trim it, right? Same way, all that spiritually, you got to do the same thing. And then you yield the fruit, right? Things grow. All right. All praise. We was able to try to get through this. It was wow, 3 hours, 49 minutes. All right. Like I said, anybody had questions, comments that you want to bring out that makes the classes more fruitful? There's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to unpack in some of these precepts that we went through that can be, like Khan said, classes amongst themselves, right? And that's the beauty. So when you read it sometimes and you can come upon like one of these things, and like he said, it could be a class in itself, and you can go and dive deep into it. That's what took a lot, because just in honoring and poor, it's a long class, and then you have all the other things there. So when you studying, or when we're studying, try to do that. Make certain topics about one thing. Protect your soul, your crown. I think I got a class on that I haven't gone through yet. But there's certain things on how to make sure you maintain and protect and safeguard your spirit. And there's other aspects. So,
I mean, when we look at it, it takes time, but it should take time because it's the law, right? When you go, debate and try to break down and make sense, give sense, this is not something you just do, in a few minutes, right? Because this go here, this go there, make sure that rules go here, that rules go there, boom, connect this here. It's a lengthy process.
Nehemiah 8:8. All right, so that concludes today's Sabbath service lesson in Sirach chapters 3 and 4. Next week, we're going to be in First Chronicles chapters 18 and 19. First Chronicles chapter 18 and 19. Most High's will. Everyone was fed spiritually with the knowledge, wisdom, understanding that came from the scriptures. Give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High Yahweh Shah for allowing myself to preside over today's Sabbath service lesson, but for the wisdom to come out. There's a precept that says, when you teach another, don't you teach yourself. So, like I said, you got it. Like the precept said, you got to be humble in this truth. So even as I'm reading and going through these things, there's certain things that now I have to apply myself, or I have to do more than I did before, as it pertains to honoring, or as it pertains to the poor, as it pertains to, speaking on certain things when I need to. All of these things, as we read it, we still have to redigest it again and chew on it, and then say, dang, am I doing enough? Can I do more? Right? And all right, I got to meditate on that, like the scripture said, and now try to do better. So when you teach others, when you're going through this, it also comes right back on you. All right. So again, I give all praise, honor, and glory for the Most High Yahweh Shah, for this knowledge, for this wisdom, for this understanding that we are privileged to be a part of. I didn't even see he posted it. Psalms 20:23, Sirach 22:23. Ye that fear Yahweh, praise him. All ye the seed of Jacob, Yaquab, glorify him and fear him. All ye the seed of Yasha'Allah. Kum Yasha'Allah. Kun. Water. Beautiful. So for those who want to, as we always say, for those, and we do this for brothers and sisters who are new or watching this over time. We want to make it so that if they want to make donations to Hayashrala Kanas to keep this truth going on, we want to make sure you have options to do that. You can send a check or money order. I don't know. Do people still send check or money? Everything is digital nowadays. I don't know. But if you do want to send a check or money order, yeah. You can make it payable to Hayashrala Kanas, not HYK. Hayashrala Kanas, 3826B, Germantown Avenue, Philadelphia, PA, 19140. It's on the ticker. And then there's also ways of doing it through digital means, either through PayPal, paypal.me/HYK12, or Zelle 646-620-7378. Again, if you missed it, you can go back and rewind the clip, like and share it, and then you can get the information. For those who want to join the classes, you can join on Zoom, profitabletalks.com. That's profitabletalks.com, Tuesdays and Fridays, 7 to 10. This is preferred, but I know sometimes people, brothers and sisters, might be working and they may not be able to do that in that manner. If you just want to have an audio means of listening, you can do it through the conference line, or you can dial in 667-770-1085, and then the PIN code is 521-455, right? So again, if you missed it, you can always go back, rewind the clip. As soon as the classes is done or the stream is done, think about 2-3 minutes afterwards, you can go back and rewind and get the information. So again, we want to say Ashar Shabbat, Shalom, Yasha Allah. I see Ahawab joined in. Shalom, Ahawab. And all the other brothers and sisters, Most High as well. Everybody has a remaining Tawab or blessed Shabbat. Stay tuned for the closing prayers. And as we always try to echo the brother's sentiment, endure until the end, Matthew 24:13, right? Endure unto the end. Overcome all that's thrown at you and put on the armor of Yahushua to stand firm in the Most High Yahweh. All right. So again, Shalom, Ashar Shabbat. Stay tuned for the closing prayers.
Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathan Lanawa, Part Yahagabin, Thawara Aman, La Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Ath Yasha Allah. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. For those who are interested in understanding, when we hear the prayers for the fruit of the vine, it's been taken from in the Apocrypha in Ecclesiasticus, the 50th chapter, around verse 13 to 15. Actually, Ecclesiasticus chapters 50, verses 13 to 16 is where that comes from when we do the prayers for the fruit of the vine. All right. Imadu upon you all in Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem for the closing prayers. Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Baba Kushai, Shamai, Lanawa, Aitha, Yum Yun, Aitha, Shalak, Maika Allah, Waha Allahim, Tazwadakim, La, Shemaiah, Barak, Rapah, Magun, Wahakasiyat, Banya, Yasha Allah, Washalat, Lanawa, Rabium, Kakama, Rabium, Da'ai, Rabium, Bayana, Rabium, Sabalanwa, Rabium, Amawan, Rabium, Aqua, Rabium, Ahabium, Rabium, Hagana, Rakhanaya, Wasalat, Kata Yamnawa, Lahaakim, Wa Akiwa, Wa Yasha'ala, Thumb Yad, Wa Iwalam, Bahasham, Yahawashai, for water, Aman. English translation. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, please listen to us now, right now. Send Michael and the righteous powers or angels to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel. And send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection, and forgive all our sins for the brothers and sisters in Israel always and forever. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you, so be it. Four corners prayer. Yahweh,
Yahweh,
Bahasham,
Bahasham,
Yahweh Shai,
Yahushua,
Barak Nawa,
Nawa,
Wayasha Allah,
Yashala,
with Bathia Saparim,
Bathia,
Shema, Yasharallah, Yahweh, Allah, Hayinawa, Yahweh. All right, English translation. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, bless us and Israel and the house of books and schools. In Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our power is one power. That say Shah Shabbat, Shalom Yasha Allah, have a Tawab, and remain in blessed Shabbat day. Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom.